Chapter 2807. The primogenitors did have many tricks up their sleeves, but it was impossible for them to find the space origin. In terms of combat strength, the space origin might not be strong, but in terms of concealment, the space origin was a headache for the primogenitors. Because it was the space origin, it could construct spaces at will. Moreover, these spaces were extremely difficult to detect. Even the primogenitors would have a hard time finding it. As they spoke, the group entered the mysterious space and arrived outside a simple wooden house. At this moment, there were already 2 young men waiting outside the wooden house. One of them was the wood spirit. The wood spirit and the other young man stood side by side. As for the other young man's identity, Xiao Qin and the others could already guess. If it wasn't the space origin, who else could it be? Clearly, the wood spirit had already told the space origin about Xiao Qin and the others. As the space spirit boat slowly landed, the beast slave took the initiative to say with a smile, "This place of yours is still as hard to find as before." "No matter how hard it is to find it, you guys still found it," the space origin replied with a smile. To be honest, the wood spirit definitely made a great contribution to be able to find the space origin this time. If it wasn't for him, it would probably be very difficult for them to find the space origin, even with the beast slave and Sure Song. As soon as the 2 of them finished speaking, the wood spirit took the initiative to step forward and said, "All right, let's cut the crap and get down to business." Now wasn't the time for idle chit-chat. How to enter the land of creation was what everyone was most concerned about. Hearing the wood spirit's words, even the beast slave nodded with a serious expression. The group directly sat outside the wooden house. Xiao Qin and the others naturally didn't know anything about the land of creation, so they listened more to the space origin's introduction. The wood spirit had already communicated with the space origin beforehand, so now there was no need to waste time explaining the purpose of their visit. As for Xiao Qin and the others entering the land of creation, the space origin also bluntly told them that it might be very dangerous and the success rate wouldn't be too high. You are all world lords of various universes. To be honest, in the outside world, you might already be an absolute powerhouse. However, to be honest, I'm still not optimistic about entering the land of creation. However, I have to say that this is your only choice now. The wood spirit should have already told you some things about the land of creation. That's right. The primogenitors and us ancient creatures were all born in the land of creation. The primogenitors and us. First of all, when you enter the land of creation, you must abandon your physical bodies. In other words, you can only enter the land of creation in your soul state. You should know how weak you are in your soul state, not to mention that you have to enter the land of creation, which is extremely dangerous. Furthermore, without a physical body, you will truly die if you encounter any danger in the place of creation. There will be no chance for you to be reborn. Can all of you accept the dangers of all this? Of its 16K Chinese, they could only abandon their bodies and enter the place of creation. This was equivalent to cutting off all paths of retreat before they even entered the place. Once they encountered danger, the consequences were obvious. Moreover, if they didn't succeed in the place of creation, then Xiao Qin and the others would have lost their bodies for nothing. It could be said that they would either succeed or die trying. However, even then, Xiao Qin and the others still didn't have any other choice. They had to go to the origin world. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to go against the origin world. Seeing that Xiao Qin and the others still chose to enter the place of creation without hesitation despite knowing how dangerous it was, the origin of space did not say anything else. It had already said what it needed to say. Since no one had any intention of backing down, the space origin didn't say anything more. As for the way to enter the land of creation, according to the space origin, it was very simple. If you want to enter the land of creation, you can say that it's difficult, But it's also easy because the entrance to the land of creation can be said to be non-existent, but it can also be said to be everywhere. It's just that you need a special spatial passage to connect to it, and this is the soul space. The soul space was a spatial passage that only the soul could pass through. The body couldn't pass through it. The space origin could construct such a spatial passage and connect it to the land of creation. However, once they entered the soul space, Shao Chun and the others' bodies would be destroyed during the passage, and only their souls would remain. This was one of the requirements to enter the land of creation. As for whether Shao Chun and the others could succeed after entering the land of creation, it wasn't up to the origin of space, the wood spirit, or the beast slaves to help. At that time, everything would depend on their own abilities. Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and Mo He, no one knows the result this time. If you can successfully come out of the land of creation, I think we can rope in more ancient creatures to join the alliance and fight against the origin world together, the wood spirit said. What the wood spirit said was true. Whether the alliance could survive or not depended on whether Shao Chun and the others could succeed this time. If they all died in the land of creation, then the wood spirit and the other ancient creatures could only continue to survive under the rule of the origin world in their own way. As for the alliance, they would probably have to disband. After all, Shao Chun and the others were the founders of the alliance. If even Shao Chun and the others died, then the wood spirit and the others would definitely not continue to join the alliance. At the same time, if Shao Chun and the others succeeded, then the wood spirit was confident that they could rope in more ancient creatures and truly blow the horn to fight against the origin world. Therefore, the final result would depend on the success of Shao Chun and the others in the land of creation. Before that, the wood spirit and the others wouldn't take any action. They could only wait for the news from Shao Chun and the others. Oh right, there's one more thing. The time in the land of creation is different from the outside world. Perhaps you've stayed in the land of creation for 100 years, but it's only been a month in the outside world. Perhaps you've only stayed in the land of creation for a moment, but it's already been 100 years in the outside world. No one can say for sure. It will depend on your luck, the origin of space deliberately reminded them in the end. Of course, no one could control the flow of time in the land of creation. It would depend on Shao Chun and the others' luck. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2808. He told Shao Chun and the others all the things they needed to pay attention to in the land of creation. As for the final result, it was not something the wood spirit and the others could control. After all, even though they were ancient creatures, the land of creation was indeed a strange yet familiar place for them. He told Shao Chun and the others all the things they needed to pay attention to in the land of creation. As for the final result, it was not something the wood spirit and the others could control. After all, even though they were ancient creatures, the land of creation was indeed a strange yet familiar place for them. It was familiar because the land of creation was where ancient creatures like the wood spirit and the others were born. It was unfamiliar because they had not had any contact with the land of creation since the day they were born. Compared to ancient creatures like the wood spirit and the others who had a unique advantage, it would be more difficult for Shao Chun and the others to find the power to break through to the world lord level in the land of creation. There was nothing they could do about it. After all, Shao Chun and the others were born to become stronger. They were not born with the power of ancient creatures. There was a fundamental difference between the two. The danger of the place of creation could not be underestimated, and they could not afford to be careless. However, Shao Chun and the others were already prepared, so after hearing the words of the wood spirit and the origin of space, they nodded without much hesitation. Naturally, there was no possibility of success in this world. Shao Chun and the others were very clear about this. If they wanted to obtain the power to fight against the origin world, they naturally had to fight with everything they had. Seeing everyone nod, the space origin nodded slightly and said, "Then I will start building the soul space now. Prepare yourselves. We will depart in 2 hours. The construction of the soul space could only be completed by the space origin. While waiting, Shao Chun, Qin Shuru, and Flower Fairy sat together in a circle. No one knew what the result of this trip to the land of creation would be. However, Qin Shuru said softly, "After this is over, I don't want to care about anything in this world anymore, husband." Qin Shuru only wanted her family to be safe and sound. As for status and power, she didn't want any of those. That was why she said that. Of course, before that, everyone had to stay alive. In response, Shao Chun smiled and held Qin Shuru's hand. "Yes, after this is over, we will find a place to start over." Shao Chun had the same idea. After this matter was over, Shao Chun would no longer care about the sacred palace. He would leave it to Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. After all, the future belonged to them. Shao Chun preferred to accompany Qin Shuru and live a peaceful life. Upon hearing Shao Chun's words, Qin Shuru gently leaned his head on Shao Chun's shoulder. He couldn't help but recall the time when the two of them first met. Everything felt like yesterday. The images in his memory were still so clear. From the beginning at the East Sword Pavilion to the current Sacred Palace, everything seemed to have happened yesterday. But when he thought about it carefully, it turned out that it had been so long. Along the way, he and Shao Chun had faced dangers and sweet moments. But in the end, they overcame everything. Shao Chun was no longer the young genius who had just joined the East Sword Pavilion. Although Shao Chun's appearance had not changed much at this time, Shao Chun still looked like a handsome young man with the improvement of his cultivation. Qin Shuru was also unparalleled in beauty. However, Shao Chun had grown into the ruler of a part of the universe. Over the years, Qin Shuru had experienced many things. She had become more indifferent to things like status and status. She was more concerned about accompanying Shao Chun. While thinking, Qin Shuru said, "Husband, do you think we will die in the land of creation this time?" "No, and even if we die, I will be with you," Shao Chun immediately replied. Inside the mysterious space, the setting sun drew Shao Chun, Qin Shuru, and the other girls closer to each other. They leaned against each other like this, enjoying a rare moment of peace. Infinity after all, no one knew what would happen if they entered the land of creation. Therefore, at this moment, everyone felt the warmth from each other's bodies. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Just as Shao Chun and the others were reminiscing about the past and looking forward to the future, the origin of space spoke. "Let's go." There was no time to waste. Hearing this, Shao Chun got up first and looked at Qin Shuru, Fairy of 100 Flowers, Gu Lingyao, Tianyue, and Hongxiu with a smile. "Let's go. This is the last time. If we can survive, I promise you that I will not care about the affairs of this world in the future. I will find a place to live in seclusion. I will work from sunrise to sunset and rest. I will live a peaceful life like this." This was the first time Shao Chun had made such a promise. Hearing this, Qin Shuru and the others also got up with a smile. The group of people walked toward the entrance of the soul space. "Let's go. Whether we live or die depends on this. Haha, if we succeed, then we die trying. If we fail, then we will see each other in our next lives. Brother Shao Chun, when the time comes to live in seclusion, don't forget me. I will go with you." Before entering the soul space, Lin Yun, Mo He, and Ancestor He all spoke one after another. Everyone had a feeling of cutting off all means of retreat. After all, this time they really had to succeed or die trying. According to the wood spirit, if they failed, then they could only die in the land of creation. Following everyone's words, the wood spirit, beast slave, and Sure Song also spoke one after another. "Go. Have a safe journey. We will wait for you to come back. Be careful. Don't really die in there." Hearing the three people's words, Shao Chun and the others bowed and bade farewell. During this period of time, Beast Slave, Sure Song, and the others had indeed helped them too much. If it weren't for Beast Slave and the others, Xiao Chun and the others probably wouldn't have been able to stop Ancestor Mu's attack last time, let alone have the opportunity to enter the land of creation. After bidding farewell, Xiao Qin walked into the soul space with Qin Shuru and the others' hands. Lin Yun followed closely behind, followed by Dongfang Yun, Mo He, Ancestor He, and the other world lords. As soon as he entered the soul space, Xiao Chun immediately felt that something was different. A mysterious force was constantly stripping away his physical body. It was like a boning knife, forcibly separating the physical body from the soul. The physical body that was forcibly stripped away also vanished into thin air. Obviously, it was directly destroyed. Accompanied by such a forceful stripping, an unbearable pain also swept through Xiao Chen's body. He gritted his teeth and persevered. No wonder the Space Origin said before that even entering the land of creation was actually a test. After all, if there was no way to withstand such a forceful stripping pain, then not to mention reaching the land of creation, it would be difficult to even pass through the soul space in the end. One must know that such pain wasn't something that anyone could endure. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 2809. The pain of forcefully separating one's physical body from one's soul was unimaginable. Moreover, the most maddening part was that the entire process was extremely slow. It was not done in one go, but rather, it was slowly destroying one's physical body bit by bit. The pain of forcefully separating one's physical body from one's soul was unimaginable. Moreover, the most maddening part was that the entire process was extremely slow. It was not done in one go, but rather, it was slowly destroying one's physical body bit by bit. As a result, the pain was naturally magnified. Therefore, although everyone could still grit their teeth and persevere in the beginning, as time passed and they slowly watched their physical body being destroyed bit by bit while feeling the intense pain, some of them finally couldn't take it anymore. Even Gu Lingyao said with a sobbing tone, "It hurts." Among Qin Shuru and Hundred Flower Fairy, Gu Lingyao's personality was definitely the purest. At the same time, her state of mind was also the weakest. Most of the time, Xiao Chen treated Gu Lingyao as a little girl and had to coax her at all times. Gu Lingyao also liked the feeling of being spoiled by Xiao Chen. As the first person in Xiao Chen's group to give up, Xiao Chen took the initiative to grab Gu Lingyao's hand and said as gently as possible, "Hang in there. Don't worry, I'm here." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao's entire body lay on Xiao Chen's body. Because of the pain, her body couldn't help but tremble, but she still gritted her teeth and persevered. Gu Lingyao also knew that this was a process that she had to go through. Moreover, during this process, if she couldn't hold on, not only would her physical body be destroyed, but even her soul might be directly destroyed by this mysterious force. Then, she would be able to accompany Xiao Chen. Gu Lingyao's thoughts were very simple. If she couldn't hold on and died, then she would never be able to see Xiao Chen again. She would never be able to act coquettishly in front of Xiao Chen again. At this moment, this simple reliance became Gu Lingyao's motivation to persevere. Xiao Chen hugged Gu Lingyao tightly in her arms. At this moment, there was nothing that Xiao Chen could do. Everyone had to endure this pain, and Gu Lingyao could only rely on herself. No one else could help her. At the same time, not only Gu Lingyao, but also Qin Shuru, Fairy of 100 Flowers, Tian Yu and Hong Xiu. The four girls also had silver teeth. However, they were stronger than Gu Lingyao, so they didn't say anything. Among the girls, Gu Lingyao was undoubtedly the one who relied on Xiao Chen the most. As for Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing, the two of them had suffered a lot along the way with Xiao Chen, so their willpower was naturally stronger. At this moment, the two of them didn't change much except that their faces were a little ugly. Xiao Chen's situation wasn't too bad for the time being, and Lin Yun's situation was the same. Lu Bingning and the others were also clenching their teeth and supporting her. At the same time, Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, monk, and Taoist were also supporting her. This time, Lin Yun's group was undoubtedly the largest. Besides Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, the ones who were in the worst situation were undoubtedly Mo He and He Zhu's group. The two of them were fine, but the people who accompanied them were already beginning to be unable to hold on. With the double psychological and physical torture, one of the people on Mo He's side was the first to be unable to hold on. He let out a blood-curdling scream and then lost his mind. His soul was also directly destroyed by the mysterious force in an instant. His whole body seemed to be directly weathered and burned, disappearing in front of everyone little by little. This was the result of not being able to hold on. Before this, the wood spirit and space origin had already warned everyone that the land of creation was extremely dangerous. Even the process of entering the land of creation was very dangerous. If it was said that everyone didn't understand how difficult it was at the beginning, then now, with the loss of someone, it was obvious that everyone had the most intuitive feeling of danger and difficulty, begging for help, and this person's death obviously wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. But Xiao Chun didn't have the time to care about that now. At this moment, Xiao Chun only hoped that nothing would happen to his side. After all, on this trip to the land of living beings, Xiao Chun wouldn't be able to accept anything happening to his big brother Xianyuan Ling, second sister Long Qing, Qin Shuru, Hundred Flower Fairy, and the others. Therefore, while enduring his own pain, Xiao Chun had to encourage Qin Shuru and the other ladies. Xiao Chun didn't need to worry about Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing because their temperaments were fine. It was especially so for Gu Lingyao. Xiao Chun had already pulled her into his arms and kept talking to her. Lingyao, we've agreed that once this is over, we'll find a place to live in seclusion. So you must hang in there. Gu Lingyao's situation was the most dangerous right now, so Xiao Chun could only encourage her to hang in there. During this process, everyone's physical bodies were constantly being peeled away. At this moment, more than half of their souls were exposed. At the same time, people died one after another due to the loss of their mental state. From time to time, screams would be heard. Such screams cast a shadow over everyone's hearts. But fortunately, in the end, no one on Xiao Chun's side died. Even Gu Lingyao gritted her teeth and persevered. But before they could rejoice, they felt a terrifying spatial turbulence spreading wildly. Moreover, at the end of the space in the distance, a white spot of light appeared. Were they about to reach the land of living beings? Looking at the white spot of light, Xiao Chun's expression turned solemn, but he still shouted immediately. "Hold on to me." The spatial turbulence was getting more and more violent. Xiao Chun didn't want to be separated from everyone when they entered the land of living beings, so he asked everyone to hold on to him. Upon hearing that, Qin Shuru and the other ladies, as well as Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing, naturally grabbed onto Xiao Chun without hesitation. Everyone held hands and was like a lonely boat in the spatial turbulence. They could only go with the flow. Because they were only spiritual bodies, they didn't have any power to resist at all. And in such a bumpy and turbulent situation, as long as they let go of their hands, they would probably be separated very quickly. But from the beginning to the end, everyone held on to each other. They didn't let go even when they encountered a violent force that knocked them out. Everyone was knocked unconscious by the spatial turbulence, and quite a number of people were directly scattered, passing through the white light one after another. As they got closer and closer, it was obvious that the white light was actually a door of light. Obviously, this was the entrance to the land of living beings. Everyone finally entered the land of living beings while they were unconscious. However, the real danger and test only began from this moment. Whether they could succeed in the end was still unknown. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommend it. Chapter 28:10. Xiao Chun didn't know how long he had slept. When he woke up, he saw that he was lying on a green lawn. Green grass stretched as far as the eye could see. The blue sky and white clouds intersected in the sky. A gentle breeze blew past. Everything was quiet and peaceful. Coupled with the faint fragrance of grass, it made one feel relaxed and happy. Xiao Chen didn't know how long he had slept. When he woke up, he saw that he was lying on a green lawn. Green grass stretched as far as the eye could see. The blue sky and white clouds intersected in the sky. A gentle breeze blew past. Everything was quiet and peaceful. Coupled with the faint fragrance of grass, it made one feel relaxed and happy. "Is this the land of creation?" Xiao Chen murmured softly. To be honest, the scenery in front of him wasn't very beautiful. However, for some reason, it gave him a very unique feeling. A gentle breeze, green grass, blue sky, white clouds. Everything was combined so naturally. Everything seemed ordinary, but it gave him a feeling that it was extremely far away. Xiao Chen didn't sense any danger. Soon, he found Qin Shuru, Fairy of 100 Flowers, and the others. Fortunately, when they entered the land of creation, Xiao Chen immediately gathered everyone together. That was why they weren't blown away by the violent spatial storm. Everyone was safe and sound. It seemed that they were only knocked unconscious by the violent spatial storm. After confirming that everyone was fine, Xiao Chen secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he waited for everyone's attribute. After passing through the spiritual space, everyone was only left with their spiritual bodies. Their physical bodies were severely destroyed, so their strength was naturally weakened. However, this was a necessary condition to enter the land of creation. Unless they were existences like the primordial spirits or the primogenitors, they couldn't enter the land of creation with their physical bodies. Otherwise, it was impossible for others to do so. Not long after, Xianyuanling, Longqing, and the others woke up one after another. Seeing that everyone was fine, they relaxed and took the opportunity to look at the surrounding scenery. "Husband, this place is so beautiful. Let's find a place like this to live in seclusion in the future, okay?" During this period of time, everyone had been on tenterhooks, especially after they had faced the primordial world head-on. They had felt even more pressure. Now that they were in the land of creation, they actually felt a rare moment of peace. Therefore, Qin Shuru quickly fell in love with this place. It was really beautiful here. Although there was no special scenery, it gave people a very comfortable feeling. Qin Shuru had always wanted such a life. Not only Qin Shuru, but even Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu chimed in. "Big Sister Shuru is right. Hubby, let's find a place like this in the future. We can build a house here and a garden here for Big Sister Baihua." The two women chatted happily. It seemed that they had already planned their future. Hearing this, Xiao Chen could not help but reveal a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Hearing these women's words, he could not help but feel a sense of longing in his heart. Indeed, it would be great if they could live like this. They wouldn't have to care about the disputes in the outside world, and could live a peaceful life. Perhaps such a life would be the happiest for a family. Humans would only want to return to a peaceful life after experiencing some things or after gaining enormous power and strength. But one had to admit that everything that the young ladies said was their true thoughts, and there wasn't the slightest bit of hypocrisy. After obtaining a rare peace in the land of creation, they let down their guard. After all, everyone knew that it was impossible for the primordial ancestors to chase them to the land of creation. Therefore, everyone naturally felt safe here. But was it really safe here? While Xiao Chen and the others were speaking, all of a sudden, without any warning, Xianyuanling felt a sharp pain in his foot. Then, he felt a powerful force coming from the bottom of his foot, and in an instant, he was thrown to the ground. This sudden change put Xiao Chen and the others on guard instantly. But before they could detect anything strange, Qin Shuru, Longqing, Gu Lingyao, and Xiao Chen were thrown to the ground one after another. Changsha, at the same time, after they fell to the ground, the green grass on the ground began to grow rapidly. Almost in the blink of an eye, countless green grasses were like sturdy iron chains that bound Xiao Qin and the others tightly. Xiao Qin and the others couldn't break free from the grass at all. Even if they used all their weapons, they still couldn't break free. These green grasses were like divine weapons that tightly bound Xiao Qin and the others' bodies. At the same time, after Xiao Qin and the others were trapped, the grassland in front of them underwent an indescribable change. At this moment, the grass on the originally beautiful and relaxing grassland actually began to move on its own. They rose from the ground and their roots walked on the ground like a pair of legs. Not long after, they gathered around Xiao Qin and the others. Outsiders! Not only that, after gathering around Xiao Qin and the others, these green grasses could actually communicate. This stunned Xiao Qin and the others. These green grasses have spiritual intelligence? They can even speak human language? Although they didn't believe it, the truth was right in front of them. Even if Xiao Qin and the others didn't want to, they had to believe everything in front of them. How could an outsider enter this place? Then, who are they? Why did they suddenly appear? And it seems like the entrance was open just now. I saw the door of light. These green grasses ignored the surprise of Xiao Qin and the others and had already begun to discuss among themselves. After a while, a green grass that looked like a leader spoke. "All right, what's the use of arguing here? If you want to know the answer, why don't you just ask them directly?" "That's right, why don't you just ask them directly?" Hearing this, these green grasses instantly reacted. Xiao Qin and the others were speechless. Although these green grasses had spiritual intelligence, they didn't look very smart. It was such a simple question. Even if they understood, there was nothing to be proud of, right? Xiao Qin didn't sense any hostility or killing intent from these green grasses, so he chose to cooperate for the time being. Soon, the green grass that spoke earlier came in front of Xiao Qin and asked with a shaky body. "Now I'll ask and you'll answer. You have to cooperate or we'll kill you." It was an extremely naive and childish threat. Hearing this, Xiao Qin almost laughed. He was almost certain that although these green grasses had spiritual intelligence, they were definitely not high. They were only at the level of children. However, Xiao Qin was curious about these green grasses. He nodded and replied, "Okay, you can ask. I'll answer you if I know the answer." "Well, that's not bad, but you can't lie to me. Otherwise, I'll definitely be angry. At that time, you'll know how terrible the consequences are." Hearing Xiao Qin's answer, this green grass shook its head and said. Obviously, it was very satisfied with Xiao Qin's answer. It was quite proud of itself. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommend it. Chapter 28:11. Sword Master 8 Desolations. Request for leave. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 28:12. Xiao Qin nodded repeatedly in the face of the threat posed by the grass. Although he didn't know why these grasses had gained sentience and didn't seem weak, Xiao Qin didn't sense any hostility from them. The most important thing was that although these grasses had spiritual intelligence and their combat strength was inferior, their personalities were very simple. They didn't seem to be scheming at all. Even when they were threatening him, they gave off a feeling of stupidity. "Look at how cooperative I am. Why don't you let me go first?" Xiao Qin said with a chuckle as he looked at the grass in front of him. Hearing this, the grass was silent for a moment before asking, "What if you run away if I let you go?" Well, it wasn't too stupid. But even so, it couldn't resist Xiao Qin's persuasion. "There are so many of you here. Where can I run to? Besides, isn't this your territory? Are you afraid that I'll run away?" "That's true. Okay, I'll let you go. But don't think about running away." With almost no effort, Xiao Qin persuaded the grass with just a few words. Then, Xiao Qin's group was naturally released and regained their freedom. Xiao Qin indeed didn't intend to run away. After all, these grasses were so simple. If he didn't ask them about the land of creation, wouldn't it be a great loss? What's your name? Name? Faced with Xiao Chen's question, the grass was stunned. Obviously, it didn't have a name at all. Perhaps from the day it gained sentience, it didn't know what a name meant. Seeing this, Xiao Chen said with a smile, "A name is what everyone calls themselves. It should be something they're born with. Don't you have one?" Hearing this, the grass said hesitantly, "It really didn't have a name. In that case, why don't we call you Little Green?" Xiao Chen directly took the initiative and even gave the grass a name. Hearing this, the grass was stunned at first, but then it happily agreed. Obviously, it liked the name Xiao Chen gave it, but on the surface it still said proudly, "Since that's the case, I'll reluctantly agree." In this regard, Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't argue with it. He smiled and Little Green asked, "Who are you? Why are you here? And what's your purpose in coming here?" Little Green was obviously most curious about the identity of Xiao Chen's group. In this regard, Xiao Chen answered truthfully and briefly told Little Green about the outside world. Obviously, Little Green knew nothing about the outside world. Not only that, but it was also full of curiosity. Since the day it was born, Little Green and the others had been living in the land of creation and had no contact with the outside world at all. Perhaps before meeting Xiao Chen, Little Green didn't know that there was such a big world outside the land of creation. While listening to Xiao Chen's narration, Little Green kept chiming in excitedly like a happy child. Xiao Chen smiled wryly, while Qin Shuru and the other girls covered their mouths and chuckled. Such a fierce-looking grass was indeed interesting. Not only Little Green, but the countless grass in the surroundings were also completely attracted by Xiao Chen's narration. In their opinion, the outside world was really too exciting, unlike the land of creation where everything was so boring. That's right, everything about the place of creation was boring in the eyes of Little Qing and the others. Therefore, even after Xiao Chen had finished speaking, Little Qing still wanted to continue. "The outside world is really interesting. It's not like this place at all. It's so boring." Haha, the so-called interesting is because you haven't seen the cruelty of the outside world. Just like I said earlier, we're here to stop all of that from happening," Xiao Chen said with a smile. Little Green was obviously unable to fully understand Xiao Chen's meaning. However, it still pretended to be profound and wanted to pretend that it could understand Xiao Chen's words. Xiao Chen was amused by Little Green when he saw this. This fellow's character was really interesting. However, since even an ordinary grass could give birth to intelligence and possess a cultivation that wasn't weaker than the ancestor realm, Xiao Chen was also full of hope for the land of creation. That's right, Little Green's strength was comparable to an ancestor realm expert. Moreover, it was an extremely ordinary little blade of grass. Even so, it had still given birth to intelligence in the place of creation, and possessed an extraordinary cultivation. It was no wonder that the wood spirit and ancestor Qiu said that the land of creation was the creator of everything. Even a pig could become an expert if it lived in the land of creation for a long time. These words were indeed true. Little Green was the most direct example. After a conversation, Little Green had obviously let down its guard against Xiao Chen. It was really a simple-minded fellow. Xiao Chen also began to chat with Little Green and asked about the land of creation. However, the result still made Xiao Chen feel a little helpless. Although this fellow had been living in the land of creation, it didn't know much about the land of creation. It had almost never left this plane. It had always lived on this plane. As for other places, Little Green had almost never been there. Therefore, it naturally didn't know the situation of other places in the land of creation. He couldn't get any useful information from Little Green. Xiao Chen also asked about the whereabouts of Lin Yun and the others, but Little Green still said that it didn't know. However, what was certain was that everyone had split up. If Lin Yun and the others had landed on the same plane as Xiao Chen, Xiao Qing would definitely know. After all, this plane was their territory. Even the slightest movement in the wind would not be able to escape Xiao Qing's eyes. Since Little Green and the others only found Xiao Chen and the others, it meant that Lin Yun and the others were definitely not here. Perhaps they were washed away by the spatial turbulence. In this regard, although Xiao Chen was helpless, there was nothing he could do. Since they were scattered, they could only act separately. Besides, Xiao Chen wasn't too worried about Lin Yun and the others. After all, everyone's strength wasn't weak. Since they could become world lords, they had experienced countless dangers. When facing danger, their reactions were definitely not comparable to ordinary people. Therefore, there was no need to worry too much. Now, it was most important to rush to the center of the land of creation as soon as possible to seek the heaven and earth spirit that could help them improve their life level. Brothers, I took a day off yesterday. I'm really sorry. I'll make up for it today. This is the first update. There's more to come. Thank you for your support. Chapter 28:13. The Heaven and Earth Spirit was the ultimate goal of Xiao Chen's group. Only the Heaven and Earth Spirit could elevate Xiao Chen's group to the level of life and allow them to reach the heights of the ancient creatures and ancestors. The Heaven and Earth Spirit was the ultimate goal of Xiao Chen's group. Only the Heaven and Earth Spirit could elevate Xiao Chen's group to the level of life and allow them to reach the heights of the ancient creatures and ancestors. Of course, the Wood Spirit told Xiao Chen all of this. However, even though the Wood Spirit introduced the Heaven and Earth Spirit in detail, he didn't know where exactly it was located in the land of creation and what it looked like. The Heaven and Earth Spirit possessed spiritual intelligence, and its location and appearance were also different. According to the Wood Spirit, the Heaven and Earth Spirit could change its appearance and move freely. Of course, it was also certain that it couldn't leave the land of creation. Therefore, the Heaven and Earth Spirit must be somewhere in Chuan Province. As for where exactly it was, Xiao Chen's group had to search for it themselves. The Wood Spirit didn't know much about it either. Their goal was the Heaven and Earth Spirit. And now, Xiao Chen couldn't get too much information from Little Green. He had the thought of leaving. After all, he didn't have much time to waste here. Little Green, I have to go. At this thought, Xiao Chen looked at Little Green and said. Even though Little Green's attitude toward Xiao Chen's group wasn't great, after the conversation, Little Green's naive personality seemed to treat Xiao Chen as a friend. At the very least, it had let down its guard. Therefore, after hearing that Xiao Chen was leaving, Little Green's attitude wasn't the same as before. You're leaving already? Yes, we don't have much time. We have to find the Heaven and Earth Spirit as soon as possible, so, Xiao Chen said somewhat apologetically. Even though Little Green was just an ordinary grass, since it was born with spiritual intelligence, it was also a life. Besides, after chatting with Little Green, Xiao Chen didn't dislike it. Its naive nature made Xiao Chen feel comfortable talking with it. If it were any other time, perhaps Xiao Chen would have chatted with it for a while. But now, he definitely couldn't. They hadn't found the whereabouts of the Heaven and Earth Spirit, and Xiao Chen didn't have too much time to waste. Upon seeing this, even though Little Green was reluctant, it didn't stop Xiao Chen. It knew that Xiao Chen had things to do and couldn't stay here forever. Green nodded and got ready to send Xiao Chen off. However, at this moment the ground suddenly trembled slightly. Sensing this, Little Green and the surrounding grass were all stunned. Then, one by one, they said as if they were facing a great enemy. Is that the Wood Spirit clan? Soon, the grass rushed into the distance. Little Green also said to Xiao Chen, I wanted to send you guys off, but now I'm not used to it. Those bad guys from the Wood Spirits are here again. You guys be careful. After saying that, without waiting for Xiao Chen's reply, Little Green also commanded the grass to rush into the distance. It was obvious that it was going to face the enemy. Although he didn't know what the wood spirits were, judging from Little Green's behavior, perhaps they were mortal enemies. In this land of creation, there was no lack of fighting. Seeing Little Green leave, Xiao Chen frowned slightly. After a moment of silence, he whispered softly, "There's no hurry. Forget it." As he spoke, Xiao Chen looked at Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others. Seeing this, everyone naturally understood what Xiao Chen meant. After so many years, everyone naturally knew what Xiao Chen was thinking. Everyone had a good impression of Little Green. Although it was just a grass, its pure nature made it hard to dislike it. In the eyes of Xiao Chen and the others, Little Green was just like a child, pure and cute. But putting this aside, as the leader of the grass, Little Green really acted like a leader at a critical moment. At least just now, Little Green didn't have the slightest intention of backing down. Therefore, after seeing Little Green leave, Xiao Chen decided to help without much hesitation. Nodding, Xianyuan Ling smiled and said, "Indeed, it's not a big deal." Several people agreed with Xiao Chen's decision. Seeing this, Xiao Chen smiled and then led Qin Shuru, Xianyuan Ling, and the others in the direction where Little Green and the others left. Soon, they arrived at the place of the battle. At this time, the grass led by Little Green was fiercely fighting with dozens of towering trees. These trees had also developed spiritual intelligence and were stronger. However, Little Green and the others had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. There were only dozens of wood spirits, but Little Green and the others had tens of thousands of them. Even so, the battle was still very tense. After all, in terms of individual strength, Little Green and the others obviously couldn't be compared with these wood spirit. This was not difficult to see from the grass being directly killed and trampled on. These grasses, which had gained sentience, would naturally die. Furthermore, Xiao Chen was able to cast a spell with his keen senses. When the grasses died, wisps of green light would seep into the bodies of the wood spirits. It was as if they had absorbed the original power of these grass. Every time this happened, these wood spirits would show a look of enjoyment. This was a battle that broke out because of plundering. It seemed that the reason these wood spirits attacked Little Green and the others was very likely to seize their power to strengthen themselves. With this guess in mind, Xiao Chen also saw Little Green's figure at this time. As the leader, Little Green's strength was naturally the strongest among these grass. At this time, it was bearing the brunt of the battle and fighting fiercely with the strongest wood spirit. Unfortunately, Little Green's strength was indeed weak. It was only equivalent to an ancestor-level warrior, while the wood spirit had the cultivation and combat power of a world lord. Therefore, in terms of one-on-one combat, Little Greenie was definitely at a disadvantage. Fortunately, Little Greenie had a lot of helpers. Although Little Greenie and the others were able to hold on for the time being with their advantage in numbers, the grass was dying at every moment. This also showed the cruelty of the battle. They could only use their lives to make up for the gap in combat power. This might be the biggest disadvantage of Little Green and the others, but there was no other way. Little Green and the others' bodies were originally extremely ordinary grass. Even if they had developed spiritual intelligence because they were born in the land of creation, Little Green and the others were still the weakest existences. This was destined at birth, just like Xiao Chen and the other ancestors. No matter how hard Xiao Chen and the others worked, they could not surpass the ancestors unless they could achieve a sublimation of life. It was very unfair, but there was no other way. Many things in this world were destined at birth. There was no choice and no way to change it. Please collect monthly vote recommend. Chapter 28:14. Xiao Chen watched as Little Qing and the wood spirit battled fiercely. It was obvious that Little Qing was being completely suppressed. For some reason, Xiao Chen seemed to see his own shadow in Little Qing. Xiao Chen watched as Little Qing and the wood spirit battled fiercely. It was obvious that Little Qing was being completely suppressed. For some reason, Xiao Chen seemed to see his own shadow in Little Qing. It was just like when he faced the ancestors. It wasn't that he didn't work hard enough, but that many things were destined from the moment he was born. If Shao Chun had the unique advantages of the ancestors, Shao Chun wouldn't be afraid of them. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in this world. From the moment he was born, Shao Chun was destined to be an ordinary person. Although Shao Chun had finally reached a height that ordinary people couldn't reach through his unremitting efforts, Shao Chun was still inferior to the ancestors who were born with endless advantages. Take Little Qing for example. If it wasn't a blade of grass, but a towering tree, perhaps the current situation would be completely different. Without thinking too much, Shao Chun immediately said to Xianyuan Ling and the others, "Let's attack together and take down the strongest wood spirit first." Moreover, Shao Chun and the others were all in spirit form, so their battle prowess was greatly weakened. At this time, it was naturally best to capture the leader first. Helping Little Qing take down the strongest wood spirit was the best choice. Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and Qin Shuru all nodded when they heard Shao Chun's words. Then, Shao Chun took the lead and charged towards the wood spirit that Little Qing was fighting. Little Qing, who was already on the verge of collapse, suddenly saw Shao Chun charge out. It asked in surprise, "Why did you come back?" "I came back to help you." Hearing this, Shao Chun gave a simple reply. Then, without hesitation, he made his move and clashed head-on with the wood spirit. No matter what, Shao Chun was still in existence at the level of a world lord. With him taking on the wood spirit's attack head-on, the pressure on Little Qing was naturally reduced by a lot. Not to mention, there was also Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others helping her. Shao Chun's return surprised Little Qing. Initially, it was just a little curious about Shao Chun and this group of outsiders. After chatting, Little Qing didn't have any special thoughts. However, it obviously didn't expect Shao Chun to return and even help it. It didn't know the concept of friends. After all, in the land of creation, Little Qing didn't know what friends were. In its life, it only had the grass around it as its companions. At this moment, in Little Qing's eyes, Shao Chun seemed to have become much closer. It was as if he was one of its own kind. At least, he was worthy of its trust. Shao Chun didn't know what Little Qing was thinking. At this time, Shao Chun was fighting fiercely with the wood spirit. Without a physical body, Shao Chun was indeed unable to exert his full combat power. However, even so, Shao Chun was still fighting back and forth with the wood spirit. Although it seemed that Little Qing was indeed at a disadvantage, it was far from being defeated. Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and the others were also very smart. They didn't fight with the wood spirit directly. Instead, they kept looking for opportunities to launch sneak attack. After being together for so many years, Shao Chun, Xianyuan Ling, and the others naturally had a tacit understanding. Very good. Everyone knew how to fight at this time. The task of the main attack was naturally handed over to Shao Chun. Shao Chun withstood all the pressure from the wood spirit. Xianyuan Ling and the others continued to attack, exhausting the wood spirit's physical strength. "Who are you?" In the midst of the battle, the wood spirit shouted coldly. Its voice was like that of an old man, hoarse and old. Hearing this, Shao Chun replied faintly, "I'm just an unrelated person. However, I'm this little guy's friend." Friend? Hearing this, Little Qing was stunned. It didn't know what a friend meant, but it sounded like a good thing. For this person who suddenly interfered and ruined its plan, the wood spirit was naturally incomparably angry. If Shao Chun didn't intervene, then this time, it would obviously be the same as before. It would be a complete victory and plunder the most abundant energy. That's right. The grudge between the Wood Spirit clan and Little Qing had existed for a long time. Almost every once in a while the two sides would fight, just like now. However, every time, the Wood Spirit clan would be the first to attack. As for the purpose of the Wood Spirit clan, it was very simple. That was the energy of Little Qing and the others. It could be seen that after every blade of grass was killed, these wood spirits would be able to absorb a green energy. It was different from spiritual energy, but perhaps this was what these wood spirits needed. It was also because of this that the Wood Spirit clan had never thought of eliminating Little Ching and the others. After all, if they kept Little Ching and the others, they could come and plunder a batch of energy every once in a while. It was like a flock of sheep in a pen. They wouldn't directly kill you, but from time to time, they would come and mess with you. Xiao Chen had already guessed that these wood spirits wanted the green energy, but he still said, "Stop. With us here, I'm afraid you won't succeed in a few days." Xiao Chen didn't have a way to completely solve this matter, nor did he have that much time. However, since he saw it, he naturally had to stop it. As for what would happen in the future, that wasn't something Xiao Chen could deal with. After all, he couldn't stay here forever. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the wood spirit was obviously unmoved. "Stop. How could that be possible? The Wood Spirit clan needed this energy. If there wasn't enough energy, then they wouldn't be able to survive. That was all. Therefore, they had to plunder enough energy. In other words, they had to kill enough grass to maintain their own survival. Therefore, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the Wood Spirit didn't hesitate at all and said coldly, "Stop? Do you think that's possible?" It obviously had no intention of stopping. In this regard, Xiao Chen wasn't surprised. He just shook his head slightly and said, "Then I'll offend you." Since the soft approach didn't work, he naturally had to use the hard approach. After saying that, Xiao Chen moved his thoughts and the dustless sword directly appeared in his hand. At the same time, the sword realm was instantly activated and directly enveloped the wood spirit. For a time, the terrifying power of the sword realm crazily suppressed the strength of the wood spirit. Feeling Xiao Chen's strange attack method, the wood spirit was shocked. What was going on with this method? Why could it suppress its strength? Being in the land of creation, it naturally didn't know about the sword realm. It was also the first time it came into contact with such a power. After the sword realm was activated, Xiao Chen didn't have any intention of stopping. He directly slashed out with his sword. His strongest attack, the Emperor's sword, was directly displayed. The terrifying sword edge slashed across the sky and went straight for the wood spirit. It seemed that he wanted to kill it with a single slash. Please add it to your collection. Monthly votes recommend it. Chapter 28:15. In the face of Xiao Chen's sword, the wood spirit did not dare to be careless because it felt a strong murderous intent and extreme threat from the sword. It had to admit that Xiao Chen's sword was enough to kill it. In the face of Xiao Chen's sword, the wood spirit did not dare to be careless because it felt a strong murderous intent and extreme threat from the sword. It had to admit that Xiao Chen's sword was enough to kill it. Therefore, for a moment, the wood spirit focused all its attention on Xiao Chen. It could not be helped. Compared to Little Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and the others, Xiao Chen gave it a more dangerous feeling. Naturally, he became an existence that it had to deal with all its strength. Countless branches grew wildly and quickly formed a huge wood shield in front of the wood spirit. Xiao Chen had never seen such a method before. After gaining sentience, these wood spirits seemed to be able to grow their own bodies at will. It was the same when they were fighting Little Qing and the others. The Emperor's sword slammed into the wood shield. The wood spirit's wood shield was extremely tough. In the end, it successfully blocked the attack of Xiao Chen's Emperor's sword. However, even though his attack had been blocked, Xiao Chen was not the least bit annoyed. Instead, he smiled. The wood spirit did not understand what this meant at first. His attack had been blocked, so why was Xiao Chen so happy about it? But soon, it understood. Because when it blocked Xiao Chen's attack, behind it, Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and Qin Shure's attacks came as scheduled. Because its attention was almost all attracted by Xiao Chen, the wood spirit was almost defenseless against the attacks of Xianyuan Ling and the others. Xianyuan Ling and the others were very smart. The target of their attacks was actually behind the wood spirit. It might be able to block the attack of one person, but in the face of the joint attack of several people, the wood spirit was instantly injured. It did not have the slightest ability to fight back. All the attacks hit, and the wood spirit was immediately blasted away. Its huge body directly soared into the air. The terrifying power directly blasted a big hole in the wood spirit's body. Although it was unknown whether these wood spirits could be killed, in the face of such damage, no matter how strong its recovery ability was, it would not feel good, let alone recover quickly. From the very beginning, Xiao Chen did not expect his attack to have any effect. After all, he did not have a physical body, and his combat power was not at its peak. Furthermore, the wood spirit was not weak either. A simple attack was enough to injure him. It was a very difficult thing to do. However, this wood spirit would never have thought that Xiao Chen, who was the strongest among them, was just a feint. The ones who were really prepared to give it a fatal blow were actually Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others. It could not be helped. Everyone's tacit understanding was too strong. They did not need to communicate at all to understand each other. Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing naturally knew what Xiao Chen was thinking. So when Xiao Chen attacked, everyone was already prepared to attack. Their cooperation could be said to be flawless. They did not give the wood spirit any time to dodge or defend. One attack was enough to severely injure the wood spirit. As the wood spirit was seriously injured by Xiao Chen and the other wood spirits on the scene were stunned for a moment. It could not be helped. Who asked this wood spirit to be their leader? It was also the strongest. But now, in the blink of an eye, it was seriously injured. And from the looks of it, it was obviously not lightly injured. It fell heavily from the sky. Before the wood spirit could get up, Xiao Chen had already appeared in front of it. The tip of his sword was directly in front of it. He said with a calm expression, "Do you still want to fight?" As long as Xiao Chen was willing, he could casually attack again and continue to injure it. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the wood spirit was unwilling to accept it. However, it could only look at Xiao Chen angrily. "Humph, you have an unfair advantage." "There's nothing unfair about it. It's fine as long as I can win." Xiao Chen did not feel that there was anything wrong with his method. It was not an arena. Who said that one had to fight alone? After saying that, Xiao Chen did not wait for the wood spirit to reply and continued to ask, "Are you going to stop now?" In the face of Xiao Chen's threat, the wood spirit finally chose to stop. It had no choice. It had been seriously injured by Xianyuan Ling and the others. If it continued to fight, it would very likely die here. Moreover, Xiao Chen did not show much intention to kill it. Therefore, the wood spirit made the wisest choice. After everyone stopped, Xiao Chen looked at the wood spirit and asked, "Did you attack here just to steal the green energy?" It had long seen that the wood spirit wanted the green energy. In response, the wood spirit asked, "Yes. What's the use of the green energy? Can it increase your strength?" "No, we want it to save Grandpa Tree." It was not something to increase one's cultivation or battle strength. It was to save people. Under Xiao Chen's questioning, the wood spirit quickly told the truth. In fact, the wood spirit clan did not only have them. Within the wood spirit clan, there was a wood spirit. It was said that it had existed for the longest time and was also the ancestor of all wood spirit. The clan members affectionately called it Grandpa Tree. However, because its lifespan was almost exhausted, Grandpa Tree was almost on the verge of death. The green energy in Little Green and the others' bodies could replenish Grandpa Tree's vitality. As long as Grandpa Tree was infused with this energy regularly, it could help Grandpa Tree extend its life. Therefore, the Wood Spirit clan would attack Little Green and the others every once in a while in order to steal the green energy to extend Grandpa Tree's life. However, this time, they did not expect to be stopped by Xiao Chen and the others. Otherwise, based on their previous experience, Little Green and the others would definitely not be able to stop the Wood Spirit clan. Moreover, the Wood Spirit clan would not kill Little Green and the others. As long as they obtained enough green energy, they would leave and come back again. It was not to increase their strength, but to save people. Hearing this, Xiao Chen's heart trembled slightly. If this Wood Spirit was telling the truth and this so-called Grandpa Tree had lived for a very long time, then it must be very familiar with this place of creation. If that was the case, did it know about the spirit of heaven and earth? Or rather, how to find the spirit of heaven and earth? For a moment, Xiao Chen was a little tempted. However, judging from their actions just now, it seemed unlikely that these Wood Spirits would take him to see Grandpa Tree. This was because there was obviously hostility between the two sides. Moreover, these Wood Spirits respected Grandpa Tree so much. How could they let him see Grandpa Tree? He had to think of a way to see Grandpa Tree. At the same time, he began to think of a countermeasure. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommend it. Chapter 28:16. Grandpa Tree had existed for many years and knew many things about the land of creation. In any case, according to this Wood Spirit, Grandpa Tree was an omniscient and omnipotent existence. The entire Wood Spirit race worshipped and respected Grandpa Tree very much. For a moment, Xiao Chen also had the idea of meeting this old tree. After all, an existence like it must have a better understanding of the land of creation. Maybe he could get some useful information from it. However, it seemed that it would not be easy to meet Grandpa Tree because these Wood Spirits were obviously very wary of him and the others. With their respect for Grandpa Tree, if he wanted to force a meeting with Grandpa Tree, they would probably not hesitate to fight him to the death. If force did not work, he could only use a soft approach. Soon, Xiao Chen thought of a way. Moreover, he had something that the land of creation did not have, and that was medicinal pills. That's right, there were no medicinal pills in the land of creation. After all, there were no warriors here, let alone alchemists. Xiao Chen just happened to have medicinal pills that could be used to increase one's lifespan. Although these medicinal pills were expensive, at Xiao Chen's level, they did not have much meaning. If he could use these medicinal pills to increase the abilities of the old tree, it would be a good idea for both sides to cooperate and take what they needed. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen also said bluntly to the Wood Spirit in front of him, "I want to see your Grandpa Tree. I have some things to ask it." Impossible. Sure enough, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the Wood Spirit immediately replied excitedly. It even looked like it wanted to fight to the death with Xiao Chen. What a joke! How could it allow Xiao Chen to hurt Grandpa Tree? Xiao Chen had already expected this Wood Spirit's reaction, so he was not surprised. Regardless of its exposure, he said indifferently, "I may have a way to increase the lifespan of your Grandpa Tree for a very long time. At least 100 years shouldn't be a problem. This way, you won't have to come here to plunder the green energy at all times. All I want is to ask a few questions. We both get what we need, and you won't lose out. Most importantly, I can solve your most troublesome problem." Xiao Chen's voice was very calm, without any hint of threat. Hearing this, the Wood Spirit hesitated. Increasing Grandpa Tree's lifespan was a huge matter for the Wood Spirit race. Now that Xiao Chen said that he had a way to increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years, how could it not be tempted? One had to know that every time they came to snatch the green energy, they could only increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by a year. Sometimes, it could even increase his lifespan by a few months. That was why the Wood Spirits kept attacking Little Qing and the others. If Xiao Chen could really increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years in one go, then the Wood Spirit race would not have to worry about Grandpa Tree for a very long time. This was indeed an irresistible temptation. Moreover, Xiao Chen only wanted to ask Grandpa Tree a few questions. For the Wood Spirit race, there was nothing to lose. The only thing that worried the wood spirit was that Xiao Chen wanted to harm Grandpa Tree. It was afraid that Xiao Chen would hurt Grandpa Tree. If that was really the case, then it would become a sinner of the wood spirit race. On one hand, it was worried. On the other hand, it was an irresistible temptation. For a moment, the wood spirit fell into a dilemma. However, it obviously did not know that Xiao Chen's 100 years was actually a conservative estimate. After all, with the elixirs he had, even an ordinary person could live for at least 400 to 500 years. However, Xiao Chen did not know much about the wood spirit race, so he could only make a conservative estimate. Seeing that the wood spirit had fallen silent, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Anyway, you won't lose anything. When I see Grandpa Tree, you can also send someone to protect me. I don't care. That way, you don't have to worry about me hurting Grandpa Tree." Xiao Chen continued to bluff, but he did not lie. After all, it was not a secret that he asked Grandpa Tree. It was not a big deal if the wood spirit race heard it. However, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the wood spirit was stunned. If that was really the case, then it was not impossible to agree. In any case, it was only worried about Grandpa Tree's safety. However, if it could send someone to protect Grandpa Tree, then it would not be impossible for this guy in front of it to meet Grandpa Tree. It had to be said that Xiao Chen's words completely moved the wood spirit. It could not be helped because it was too tempting. After staring at Xiao Chen for a while, the wood spirit finally opened its mouth and asked, "Can you really increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years? I'm 80% sure, but I'll have to try to know the specifics. However, no matter what, you won't lose anything, right?" Hearing this, Xiao Chen said seriously. After all, who knew if the elixir would have any effect on these wood spirit? However, if it was only an elixir that could increase vitality, perhaps it would have some effect. He just did not know how effective it would be. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, the wood spirit finally agreed to Xiao Chen's request after discussing with the other wood spirits. However, just as Xiao Chen said, when Xiao Chen and Grandpa Tree met, they had to send someone to protect Grandpa Tree's safety. In this regard, Xiao Chen naturally did not refuse. So be it if they were present. Seeing that Xiao Chen agreed without any hesitation, the Wood Spirit clan also let down some of their guard. The previous battle naturally stopped after this agreement was reached. After all, if Xiao Chen could really increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years, then for a long time, the Wood Spirit clan would probably not attack Little Qing and the others again. After all, it was meaningless. After everything was settled, Xiao Chen and the others prepared to follow the Wood Spirits back to the Wood Spirit clan. However, before they left, Little Qing suddenly looked for Xiao Chen and said, "You're going to the Wood Spirit clan?" "Yes, if we succeed this time, you'll probably be peaceful for a long time in the future." Hearing this, Xiao Chen said with a smile, "Yes, thank you, but I also want to go with you." Little Qing expressed that she also wanted to go with Xiao Chen and the others. Hearing this, Xiao Chen was stunned and then said somewhat helplessly, "Why would you go? We have important matters to attend to in the land of creation, and we're destined not to stay here for long. There's no point in you following us. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 28:17. Xiao Chen naturally disagreed with Little Qing's request to travel with them. After all, they had matters to attend to, so why would they bring Little Qing along? Moreover, if they succeeded in the end, Xiao Chen and the others wouldn't be able to return. They would definitely leave the place of creation directly. Xiao Chen naturally disagreed with Little Qing's request to travel with them. After all, they had matters to attend to, so why would they bring Little Qing along? Moreover, if they succeeded in the end, Xiao Chen and the others wouldn't be able to return. They would definitely leave the place of creation directly. After all, there were still many things waiting for Xiao Chen and the others in the outside world, so Shao Chun and the others naturally didn't have much time to waste in the place of creation. However, Little Qing said, "I just want to go out and have a look. I haven't left this plane for so many years. You don't have to worry about me. If you want to leave, I can come back on my own." As soon as Little Qing said this, Shao Chun was a little embarrassed. However, Little Qing wasn't telling the truth. The reason why it insisted on following Shao Chun was that it liked the feeling of being with Shao Chun. In particular, when it recalled Shao Chun calling it a friend, Little Qing couldn't forget it for a long time. Therefore, Little Qing followed its heart and wanted to be with Shao Chun. In the face of Little Qing's expectation and pleading, and even repeatedly promising that it would definitely not drag Shao Chun and the others down, let alone waste Shao Chun's time, in the end, Shao Chun could only nod helplessly. "Okay, then let's go together." In Shao Chun's opinion, Little Qing was just a child who was very interested in the outside world. It was rare for it to have a chance to go out and have a look. It was just like how Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao always wanted to go out of the sacred palace when they were young. After getting Shao Chun's approval, Little Qing happily jumped onto Shao Chun's shoulder. It was not heavy at all, so Shao Chun just let it lie on his shoulder. Little Qing liked Shao Chun very much, but she was not interested in Xian Yuan Ling and the others. Even when Qin Shuru and Fairy of 100 Flowers wanted to hug Little Qing refused and only wanted to stay with Shao Chun. Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu were naturally jealous, but Shao Chun didn't say anything. When everyone left with the wood spirits, Shao Chun didn't realize that after Little Green left, the grass in front of him seemed to have lost its power in an instant and returned to its normal appearance. The entire plane also returned to its calm state, as if nothing had happened. Shao Chun didn't realize this because it happened after he left. Following the wood spirits all the way out of the plane, Shao Chun and the others soon saw a forest in the distance. Looking from afar, they didn't see anything, but when Shao Chun and the others walked closer, they realized that this wasn't a forest at all. It was just a giant tree that reached the sky after a few years. A single tree made a forest. This was what they meant. Around this giant tree, there were many similar wood spirits. When they saw Shao Chun and the others arrive, they all showed vigilant expressions. The wood spirit in charge of leading Shao Chun here found the leader of the wood spirit clan and said, "These people said that they have a way to increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan. I think we can give it a try." He didn't waste any time and directly explained the purpose of Shao Chun and the others. Hearing this, the leader of the wood spirit clan also came in front of Shao Chun and the others and reminded them that they were much bigger than ordinary wood spirit. Of course, compared to this giant tree in front of them, there was still no comparison. The difference was simply too great. "You're outsiders?" The leader of the wood spirit clan was obviously experienced and knowledgeable. At a glance, he could tell that Shao Chun and the others were from the outside world. In this regard, Shao Chun didn't have anything to hide. He nodded and admitted generously. Seeing this, the leader of the wood spirit clan continued to ask, "How do you want to increase your lifespan?" Hearing this, Shao Chun didn't waste any time. He directly took out a pill and handed it to the leader of the wood spirit clan. Then, he said, "This is a pill. You can feel the power in it. I think it shouldn't be a problem to increase your lifespan." This pill wasn't simple. If placed on an ordinary person, one pill could increase their lifespan by at least 100 years. After receiving the pill, the leader of the wood spirit clan also carefully sensed the energy in the pill. After confirming that this pill wasn't harmless, he still shook his head and said, "It's really good. However, it's a pity that if used on Grandpa Tree, I'm afraid it can only increase his lifespan by 10 years. A pill that could increase an ordinary person's lifespan by 100 years could only increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years. In this regard, Shao Chun wasn't surprised. It was just that the wood spirit clan's lifespan was greater. Therefore, although the effects of this pill didn't change, the increase in lifespan was much less. This was like the size of a person's appetite. For the same food, a person with a large appetite could only eat for a day, while a person with a small appetite could eat for 2 or 3 days. However, Xiao Chen had more than one pill on him. Therefore, he wasn't afraid of consuming it. Since one pill could only increase lifespan by 10 years, then wouldn't 10 pills be able to increase lifespan by 100 years? After confirming that Xiao Chen's pill was effective, the leader of the Wood Spirit clan fulfilled his previous agreement and allowed Xiao Chen to meet Grandpa Tree. Of course, the other members of the Wood Spirit clan also had to be around to ensure Grandpa Tree's safety. In this regard, Xiao Chen nodded without any objections. Seeing this, the leader of the Wood Spirit clan said, "Come with me." Along the way, the leader of the Wood Spirit clan led the way. However, halfway through, he suddenly asked, "Are you here for the spirits of heaven and earth? You know about the spirits of heaven and earth?" Xiao Chen didn't expect the leader of the Wood Spirit clan to have guessed the purpose of their visit. He couldn't help but ask in return. If he could get some information about the spirits of heaven and earth from the leader of the Wood Spirit clan, it would definitely be a pleasant surprise. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen's idea was soon shattered. "I've heard of it, but I've never seen it in so many years. The existence of the spirits of heaven and earth is like a legend even to us. However, Grandpa Tree has existed for a long time, so he should know something. No wonder you want to see Grandpa Tree in person." The leader of the Wood Spirit clan quickly guessed the purpose of Xiao Chen and the others to see Grandpa Tree. After all, if they wanted to ask about the spirits of heaven and earth, asking Grandpa Tree was definitely the best choice. This was because in the entire land of creation, Grandpa Tree could be said to be one of the earliest life forms to be born. He definitely knew something about the spirits of heaven and earth. He might even have seen the spirits of heaven and earth in person. Who knew? Hearing the leader of the Wood Spirit clan's words, Xiao Chen became even more excited. 10 pills that could increase lifespan. It was a good use. Even though each of these pills was incomparably precious and could be said to be priceless in the outside world, compared to the information about the spirits of heaven and earth, they were nothing. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 28:18. They followed the Wood Spirit clan all the way to the bottom of the towering ancient tree. Although Xiao Chen's group already knew the size of the ancient tree from afar, they were still shocked when they actually arrived in front of the ancient tree. They followed the Wood Spirit clan all the way to the bottom of the towering ancient tree. Although Xiao Chen's group already knew the size of the ancient tree from afar, Xiao Chen's group was still shocked when they actually arrived in front of the ancient tree. This tree was simply ridiculously huge. Even its branches were comparable to those uncle's tree trunks, and its height was comparable to a mountain peak. They really didn't know how long this ancient tree had existed. Facing the ancient tree, the Wood Spirit clan's group was incomparably respectful. After the Wood Spirit clan's group saluted, the ancient tree also emitted an old voice. "What's the matter? Grandpa Tree, there are a few outsiders who want to inquire about the spirit of heaven and earth and are willing to increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan." Hearing this, the Wood Spirit clan's patriarch opened his mouth and didn't hide anything. Hearing that it was an outsider, the ancient tree naturally began to size up Xiao Chen's group. However, when it saw Little Green on Xiao Chen's shoulder, the ancient tree was obviously stunned. Fortunately, the ancient tree's expression didn't change, otherwise, Xiao Chen would definitely have noticed it. On the other hand, Little Green was very quiet at this moment and didn't have the slightest sense of existence. After sizing up Xiao Chen, the ancient tree finally opened its mouth and said unhurriedly, "It's been a long time since outsiders have come to the land of creation." Xiao Chen's group was obviously not the first to come to the land of creation. However, Xiao Chen didn't care about the fate of the previous people. In response to the ancient tree's words, Xiao Chen cupped his hands and bowed. "Junior and the others have no other choice. We can only give it our all. If there was a way, who would take such a huge risk to enter the land of creation and even give up their physical body? Hearing this, the ancient tree smiled and said, "Take out the elixirs first. After this old man recovers, I'll answer your questions. I'm a little tired now." This old guy even knew about elixirs. It seemed that he was indeed knowledgeable and had lived for so many years. In this regard, Shao Chen didn't hesitate and directly took out 10 elixirs and handed them to the Wood Spirit Clan's patriarch. These 10 elixirs were very valuable, but to Shao Chen, they didn't have much meaning. After all, Shao Chen wasn't short of lifespan at all. As the World Lord, there was no possibility that he would die of old age. Hence the elixirs might be extremely precious in the eyes of others, but to Shao Chen wasn't that. With the help of Shao Chen's elixirs, the ancient tree indeed recovered a lot of vitality. Even its leaves began to turn emerald green and seemed to be full of vitality. Upon seeing this, the Wood Spirit Clan's group was delighted and their attitude toward Shao Chen's group became much friendlier. It couldn't be helped. These outsiders had restored so much of Grandpa Tree's lifespan, so the Wood Spirit Clan naturally had to thank them. After recovering its vitality, the ancient tree said to the Wood Spirit Clan's group at the side, "All of you can leave now. I'll talk to them alone." Grandpa Tree, this. Upon hearing this, the Wood Spirit Clan's patriarch was somewhat hesitant. Of course, he was still afraid that the ancient tree would be harmed. But the ancient tree didn't mind at all. "If they wanted to harm me, why would they save me? Go on. It's fine." Upon seeing the ancient tree's insistence, the Wood Spirit Clan's group obeyed and left. Of course, it was also because they trusted Shao Chen's group a little more. If not, they obviously wouldn't have agreed so easily. After the Wood Spirit Clan's group left, only the ancient tree, Shao Chen's group, and Little Qing were left. The ancient tree kept looking at Little Qing inadvertently, but from the beginning to the end, it didn't speak a single word to her at all. After the Wood Spirit Clan's group left, the ancient tree asked, "Did something big happen in the outside world again? Senior, are you aware of what's happening in the outside world?" Upon hearing its question, Shao Chen asked curiously. One must know that based on Lin Fan's guesses, there shouldn't have been any contact with the outside world for the living beings that were living in the land of creation. However, based on the words of this old tree, it seemed as though it had a pretty good understanding of the outside world. In fact, it even knew about pills. Facing Shao Chen's doubts, the ancient tree smiled. Of course, there's no way to contact the outside world now. But in the past, the land of creation was connected to the outside world. The creatures in the land of creation could go to the outside world, and people from the outside world could also enter the land of creation. But later on, the spirit of heaven and earth sealed off the land of creation and naturally cut off contact with the outside world. If not, why do you think those ancient creatures would appear in the outside world? They were all born in the land of creation. Upon hearing the ancient tree's explanation, Shao Chen nodded slightly. In that case, Senior should also be considered an ancient creature? I'm considered average. After all, I don't have the same lifespan as the ancient creatures. If not, I wouldn't have ended up in this state, the ancient tree replied. The ancient tree appeared almost at the same time as the ancient creatures, and its battle strength was on par with the ancient creatures. Although it wasn't as strong, the difference wasn't too huge. But ultimately, it wasn't an ancient creature and didn't have the inexhaustible vitality of the ancient creatures. The old tree was rather calm, and Shao Chen told the old tree about what happened in the outside world. The old tree wasn't too surprised when it heard that the ancestors wanted to recreate the world, but it didn't seem too surprised and simply said, "That's right." Acting on behalf of the heavens, these guys still ended up in this state. He wasn't familiar with the ancestors, but in any case, they came from the same era and had interacted with each other before. However, The ancient tree ultimately chose to stay in the land of creation, while the ancestors and ancient creatures chose to leave. Therefore, both sides didn't interact with each other anymore. Furthermore, even if the primogenitors wanted to create a new world, they would not dare to target the land of creation. Therefore, the actions of the primogenitors had little to do with the land of creation. No matter what happened in the outside world, the land of creation wouldn't be affected and would remain unchanged forever. However, since the ancient tree accepted Xiao Chen's item and recovered 100 years of lifespan, it wouldn't remain silent. Therefore, before Xiao Chen asked, the ancient tree took the initiative to speak. You want to know the whereabouts of the heaven and earth spirit? That's right. Speaking of the heaven and earth spirit, Xiao Chen was instantly interested. After all, he was here for the heaven and earth spirit. Upon seeing this, the ancient tree said helplessly, "Then I'm sorry because I can't give you an answer because I don't know where the heaven and earth spirit is. It might be far away, or it might be right in front of you. As for whether you can find it, it will depend on your luck." After hearing the ancient tree's words, Xiao Chen was speechless. It would be troublesome if the ancient tree didn't even know where it was. On the other hand, the land of creation wasn't considered big, but it definitely wasn't small either. Where would they go to find the heaven and earth spirit? Please add vote recommend. Chapter 28:19. More than half of the hope in his heart was extinguished. After all, what the old tree said was equivalent to not saying anything. What did it mean by far away on the horizon but right in front of you? The spirit of heaven and earth floated without a shadow and could even change its appearance at will. Where was he supposed to find it? More than half of the hope in his heart was extinguished. After all, what the old tree said was equivalent to not saying anything. What did it mean by far away on the horizon but right in front of you? The spirit of heaven and earth floated without a shadow and could even change its appearance at will. Where was he supposed to find it? Moreover, even if he did find it, who would know that it was the spirit of heaven and earth? After all, no one knew how the spirit of heaven and earth would appear in front of him. An unconcealable sense of disappointment appeared on his face. Seeing this, the old tree said with a smile, "Little guy, as the saying goes, when the conditions are right, success will follow naturally. Some things can never be certain. Maybe you will encounter it one day? Moreover, entering the place of creation to search for the spirit of heaven and earth is not a matter of whether you can find it or not, but whether the spirit of heaven and earth wants to see you." The old tree's words hit the nail on the head. Yes, the spirit of heaven and earth was invisible. They might not be able to find it even if they tried hard to find it. Even if they found it, they would not know that it was the spirit of heaven and earth. Therefore, their success in the end did not depend on whether Xiao Chen and the rest could find the spirit of heaven and earth, but whether the spirit of heaven and earth was willing to see Xiao Chen and the rest. The initiative was not in Xiao Chen and the rest's hands from the beginning. When the old tree said this, Xiao Chen felt a little helpless and relaxed. Shaking his head with a bitter smile, Xiao Chen said, "This junior is too stubborn. It's fine. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the game clearly. Moreover, you are impatient and will naturally not notice these details. However, you can't be too stubborn. Many things will naturally be resolved when the time comes. Many people will naturally see it." The old tree's words gave Xiao Chen a lot of inspiration. The impatience in his heart also dissipated. After all, there was no point in being impatient. To put it bluntly, he could only be anxious for nothing. Seeing that Xiao Chen had figured everything out so quickly, the old tree smiled. This child was worth teaching. Many people were too stubborn sometimes. They always felt that as long as they worked hard, they would definitely succeed. In fact, that was not the case. It was up to you to work hard, but there were many other factors that determined whether or not you could succeed. Just like Xiao Chen and the others, they worked hard. It could even be said that they did everything they could to enter the land of creation. This was their hard work. However, after that, it would depend on fate and luck. It would depend on whether the spirit of the world was willing to help Shao Chun and the others. If the spirit of the world refused to help, then even if Shao Chun and the others searched the entire place, they would not be able to find the spirit of the world. On the other hand, if the spirit of the world was willing to help, then it would naturally appear. This was not something that Shao Chun and the others could change through their efforts. Don't be too stubborn, or you'll only make yourself suffer. Sometimes, letting go is a better choice. So, what do you plan to do now? Old Tree was also interested in Shao Chun. Hearing that, Shao Chun thought for a moment, then smiled. Senior, you're right. But since we're already here, let's walk around and take a look at the land of creation. Shao Chun was no longer obsessed with looking for the spirit of the world because even if he did, he would not be able to find it. However, he did not plan to wait in one place. Since he was already in the land of creation, he would be letting himself down if he did not walk around and take a look. After all, it was very likely that he would not have a second chance to enter the land of creation in his life. Old Tree also smiled when he heard Shao Chun's words. Haha, not bad, not bad. It's rare for you to have the opportunity to come here. Wouldn't it be a pity if you don't take a look? After all, this is the land of creation. There are many nice things and sceneries. The fact that Shao Chun could say something like that proved that he had really thought it through. He was not just letting go of everything on the surface. Next, Old Tree also told Shao Chun about some of the strange stories of the land of creation. From the beginning, everyone only talked about the spirit of the world, but now they had already started talking about all sorts of things. Qin Shuru and the other girls were obviously very interested in the land of creation. After all, it was full of countless strange life forms. In other words, in the land of creation, anything could have life. Even the most ordinary stone could give birth to spiritual wisdom in the land of creation. This was the special part of the land of creation. There were all kinds of strange life forms that did not exist in the outside world, which was very attractive to Qin Shuru and the other girls. Moreover, the land of creation also had many nice sceneries. Even though Shao Chun and the others did not have a physical body now, if they were lucky, they might be able to get a good opportunity in the land of creation. It was extremely good for the strengthening of their souls. Old Tree also recommended a few such places. Everyone chatted happily. Little Qing, who was at the side, had been sticking to Shao Chun, listening to their conversation with great interest. After chatting for a few hours, Shao Chun got up and was about to leave. Old Tree did not ask him to stay. Instead, he said with a smile, "You can go to Wanshur Forest first. You should have a good experience there. Moreover, the Stone Forest clan is also very interesting." When they were chatting earlier, Old Tree recommended Shao Chun and the others to go to Wanshur Forest, which was not far from here. The scenery there was unique, and it was the territory of the Stone Forest clan. The Stone Forest clan had a straightforward personality. Although they were a little aggressive, they were not bad. It might be an unexpected gain for Shao Chun and the others. In response, Shao Chun smiled and nodded. This junior will definitely go. After bidding farewell to Old Tree, Shao Chun and the others walked away. However, after Shao Chun turned around and left, Little Qing looked back at Old Tree with a smile in her eyes. Old Tree watched Shao Chun and the others leave. He chuckled and muttered to himself, "What a lucky kid." Shao Chun naturally did not hear Old Tree's words. After Shao Chun left Old Tree, the Wood Spirit clan, who had been waiting outside, welcomed him. They had completely accepted Shao Chun and no longer had any vigilance or hostility. Seeing Shao Chun, the Wood Spirit clan leader was the first to speak. "How was it? Did you get the answer you wanted?" Shao Chun shook his head. However, he still smiled and said, "Senior Tree is right. Many things can't be forced. Just calm down and wait patiently." Perhaps everything is destined. Hearing this, the Wood Spirit Clan leader was stunned at first, but then he smiled. Xiao Chen also cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your help, Wood Spirit Clan. However, this junior should take his leave. I had a good chat with Senior Tree, and Senior Tree also recommended this junior to take a look at Wanshire Forest. Perhaps it will be very interesting. This junior is also looking forward to it. Please add me to your collection, monthly vote, recommend me." Chapter 28:20. Xiao Chen listened to the old tree's suggestion and decided to make a trip to the Wanshire Forest. After all, the old tree had said that there was no pattern to meeting the spirit of heaven and earth. One would naturally meet it when the opportunity presented itself. Perhaps Xiao Chen would meet the spirit of heaven and earth in the next moment. Xiao Chen listened to the old tree's suggestion and decided to make a trip to the Wanshire Forest. After all, the old tree had said that there was no pattern to meeting the spirit of heaven and earth. One would naturally meet it when the opportunity presented itself. Perhaps Xiao Chen would meet the spirit of heaven and earth in the next moment. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, the Wood Spirit Patriarch smiled and said, "That's a good idea. The Wanshire Forest is indeed worth a visit. However, those guys from the Stone Forest clan have bad tempers. Be careful." The Wood Spirit clan's temperament was already considered very docile. If they had any other choice, they wouldn't even attack Little Qing and the others. It was the basic nature of the Wood Spirit clan to not like fighting. However, compared to the Wood Spirit Clan, the Stone Spirit Clan was completely different. The Stone Spirit Clan was determined, impulsive, and very aggressive. However, they were somewhat one-track minded. To put it bluntly, they were not scheming at all. Along the way, he reminded Xiao Chen of many things to take note of when facing the Stone Forest Clan. However, it wasn't too dangerous. After all, the Stone Spirit Clan wasn't a bloodthirsty clan. After personally sending Xiao Chen out of the Wood Spirit Clan, the Wood Spirit Patriarch bade farewell and left. Meanwhile, Xiao Chen's group headed straight for the Wanshire Forest. On the way, Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu appeared to be very happy. They held on to Xiao Chen's arms, one on the left and one on the right. Clearly, the two little girls were relaxed for once. That's right. There was no threat from the primogenitors here. Speaking of which, if it weren't for all the things that had happened, this would really be like a vacation. Husband, what if the spirit of heaven and earth doesn't come looking for us? What should we do? However, Gu Lingyao still asked worriedly. Although the little girl was very playful, she also knew the severity of the matter. She understood the purpose of everyone entering the land of creation this time. If they didn't encounter the spirit of heaven and earth, it would be tantamount to a failure. In response, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Then we can only say that the time has not come yet, or that the spirit of heaven and earth does not want to help us, and there is nothing we can do." Xiao Chen's words were sincere. After all, in the current situation, it was useless to be anxious. The spirit of the heavens and earth was not something that could be found on its own. If the spirit of the heavens and earth did not want to find them, even if they searched the entire place, they would not be able to find it. However, if the spirit of the heavens and earth wanted to meet them, Xiao Chen and the others would be able to find it no matter where they were. As such, there was no point in being anxious because the initiative was not in his hands. It was up to the heaven and earth spirit to make its own choice. After saying that, Xiao Chen looked at Little Green, who was lying on his shoulder and had fallen asleep. He shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. This little guy insisted on coming out with him earlier, but he actually fell asleep as soon as they came out. In his sleep, he missed out on all the beautiful scenery. However, looking at Little Green, who seemed to have returned to an ordinary grass, Xiao Chen did not wake him up. It was up to him. After chatting with the old tree for a while, Xiao Chen felt much better. Just as the old tree said, there was no benefit in being stubborn. Not only would it tire him out, but it would also be meaningless and useless. Since it was useless, it was better to learn to let go. If it was fated, they would naturally meet. If it was not fated, what was the use of searching to the ends of the earth? Although he was still looking forward to meeting the heaven and earth spirit, to be honest, Xiao Chen was no longer as flustered as before because he had already done what he could. As for what happened next, it was up to heaven's will to decide. It was rare for them to be able to relax. Perhaps it was because of Xiao Chen, but Qin Shuru and the other girls were also extremely relaxed. Everyone had a happy smile on their faces, and even Xian Yuanling was no exception. It had been a long time since such a smile had appeared on everyone's faces. Ever since Xiao Chen entered the great wide world, such a smile and such a leisurely time had become less and less. The pressure was increasing, and the enemies they faced were also getting stronger. If one did not work hard, they might be overtaken and killed by others. Therefore, Xiao Chen never dared to relax in the slightest. He kept increasing the pressure on himself, causing the people around him to bear a lot of pressure every day. Now, it was rare for him to be able to put down the burden in his heart. For a moment, everyone felt an indescribable joy. It seemed that life should be like this. Be with the people you like, do what you like, and go to places you like. Husband, the scenery of the land of creation is really beautiful. It had been 3 days since they left the Wood Spirit clan. During these 3 days, Xiao Chen and the others were not in a hurry to travel. Instead, they walked and stopped along the way, admiring the beautiful scenery of the land of creation and enjoying the rare tranquility. Upon hearing 100 Flower Fairy's words, Xiao Chen smiled and nodded. The land of creation was indeed a place that could not be more beautiful. It was like a pure land that had never been tarnished by anyone. The sky was blue, and the breeze was gentle. It was as if there was no cloudy day in the land of creation. Even the sky was in a good mood every day. The sun was neither too much nor too little, neither too hot nor too cold. It was very comfortable. Coupled with the gentle breeze, it made people feel relaxed and happy. It was not an exaggeration to call such a place the pure land of time. Perhaps it was because of this that the land of creation was able to create all things in the world. After all, this was the best cradle for nurturing life. It was no wonder that everything here could have life. Husband, look, there's a stone running. Gu Lingyao exclaimed, and then quickly chased after it. There was indeed a stone running on the ground. It had hands and feet. Of course, the hands and feet were derived from the stone. This was the first time he had seen a rock that could move. Seeing this, Xiao Chen's interest was piqued. He chased after Gu Lingyao, and the rest of the people quickly caught up. They chased after the small stone all the way. Although the stone was small, only the size of a palm, it was very fast. Of course, Xiao Chen did not have any intention of hurting it. In the land of creation, it was as if there were no enemies. Most of the creatures here lived quite comfortably and were very friendly to others. Even if Xiao Chen and the others were outsiders, it was the same. Hey, little stone, don't run. Gu Lingyao, who had always hated this small stone, pouted and shouted angrily. However, just as Gu Lingyao's voice fell, the group ran up a hill. Soon, they were shocked by the scenery on the other side of the hill. On one side of the hill there was a green haystack, and on the other side, there were countless strange stones. Looking at the strange stones in front of him, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "This is the strange stone ridge, right? It's really the right place to come. Please add it to your collection, monthly votes recommend it." Chapter 28-21. They were only separated by a thin line, but the scenery on both sides was completely different. While Xiao Chen and the rest were still in a daze, the little rock from before had already disappeared. By the time Gu Lingyao regained her senses, she had already lost track of the little rock. They were only separated by a thin line, but the scenery on both sides was completely different. While Xiao Chun and the rest were still in a daze, the little rock from before had already disappeared. By the time Gu Lingyao regained her senses, she had already lost track of the little rock. The little rock is gone, Gu Lingyao said to Xiao Chun gloomily after failing to catch up with it for a long time. Hearing this, Xiao Chun rubbed Gu Lingyao's little head and smiled. It's all right, this Wancher forest is the territory of the Rock Spirit clan. Are you afraid that you won't be able to find it? The little rock had run all the way here, so it was probably a member of the Rock Spirit clan. Hearing this, Gu Lingyao felt a little better. She then gritted her teeth and said, "Humph, I must catch it." Not sure if it was out of anger or something else, but Gu Lingyao seemed to have a deep obsession with the little rock. Xiao Chun smiled and did not say anything. After all, this girl had always been like this. Moreover, she did not have any bad intentions towards the little rock. She was just a little unconvinced. After all, she had chased it for so long and still could not catch it in the end. Xiao Chun gently patted Gu Lingyao's back, and the rest slowly walked into the Wancher forest. Little Qing, who was lying on Xiao Chun's back, cried out excitedly, "The Wancher forest, I've never been to a place like this. I didn't know that there was such a place in the land of creation." Little Qing seemed to be very interested in the Wancher forest. Not only her, but everyone else was as well. However, as soon as they entered the Wancher forest, Xiao Chun and the rest ran into trouble. They saw that the originally ordinary-looking rocks around them quickly moved. Then, rock spirits appeared one after another in front of Xiao Chun and the rest. These rock spirits came in different sizes. The small ones were very small, not even reaching the height of Xiao Chun's ankle. However, the large ones were also very large, comparable to a small mountain. Just like that, Xiao Chun's group, who had just entered the Wancher forest, were quickly surrounded by these rock spirits. One of the rock spirits with a huge forehead asked Xiao Chun with a buzzing voice, "Who are you?" His tone wasn't very good, and it seemed like he was going to attack at the slightest disagreement. It seemed that the Stone Spirit clan was just as the rumors said. They were very impulsive and easily angered. Moreover, they were the kind that didn't know how to turn around. In response, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "We're from the outer world, and we're currently searching for the world spirit." Xiao Chun didn't conceal anything and replied truthfully. Hearing this, the rock spirit was stunned for a moment before it said, "Spirit of heaven and earth? How did you outsiders get in here? However, from the looks of it, you don't seem weak. How about it? Do you want to spar?" The rock spirits immediately invited him to spar. Xiao Chun smiled helplessly and bitterly. They really liked to fight. However, hearing this, the other rock spirits weren't surprised at all. Obviously, this was a very normal thing for them. The Rock Spirit clan worshipped the strong, and the strong were respected. Cowards would only be looked down upon here. It was completely different from the Wood Spirit clan. Xiao Chun didn't hesitate and agreed readily. "In that case, let's spar." "Haha, good, straightforward. You're much more straightforward than those people from before. Why are you dawdling? Haha." Hearing this, the rock spirit laughed loudly. However, hearing this, Xiao Chun was a little confused. Those people from before? Could it be that there were others who came to the Wancher forest before us? Who was it? Lin Yun, Mo He, Ancestor He and the others? However, Xiao Chun didn't immediately ask. Instead, he silently followed the rock spirit into the depths of the Wancher forest. Facing Xiao Chun's straightforwardness, the rock spirit obviously liked it very much. As a rock spirit, if it liked something, it had to show it. Therefore, its attitude towards Xiao Chun was obviously much better. This was the Rock Spirit clan. Although they liked to fight, they were also straightforward and straightforward. If they liked something, they liked it. If they didn't like it, they didn't like it. Leading Xiao Chun all the way to the depths of the Wancher forest, Xiao Chun and the others saw more rock spirits here. Obviously, the Rock Spirit clan was obviously stronger than the Wood Spirit clan. In terms of numbers alone, there was already a lot more, not to mention strength. After all, the Rock Spirit Clan was born to fight. Ah, Little Rock, you're here. Seeing Little Rock, who had been chasing after him, Gu Lingyao was pleasantly surprised. He quickly stepped forward and picked Little Rock up. You? Let go of me. Being picked up by Gu Lingyao all of a sudden, Little Rock was taken aback. Then, he began to struggle violently. He even smiled sweetly and wanted to duel with Gu Lingyao. Under Little Rock's fierce struggle, Gu Lingyao finally let go. However, Little Rock was unwilling to let go and wanted to duel with Gu Lingyao. In this regard, the Rock Spirit Clan members all watched with smiles on their faces. They didn't have any intention of helping. Naturally, Gu Lingyao had no reason to refuse. This Little Rock's strength was equivalent to an Emperor Realm Master. Apart from being a little faster, in terms of combat strength, he was naturally no match for Gu Lingyao, who had an Ancestor Realm cultivation. The final result was no surprise. Under the situation where Little Rock didn't run away, Gu Lingyao easily defeated him and continued to ravage him. After being defeated by Gu Lingyao, Little Rock was completely depressed. He allowed Gu Lingyao to throw him around. There was even one time when his hand slipped and fell to the ground. Little Rock didn't even make a sound. He didn't understand why he was defeated. These people were clearly so slow. The Rock Spirit Clan members on the side also started to laugh. Haha, Xiao Xiao, I told you to train your strength a long time ago. You just had to talk about speed. Look, speed is useless now. That's right, Xiao Xiao. As a member of the Rock Spirit Clan, how can you be so weak? Come with me tomorrow, I'll teach you. Everyone mocked and bragged. During the conversation, Xiao Qin also learned that Little Rock's name was Xiao Xiao. Moreover, his identity wasn't simple. It was said that he was the son of the Rock Spirit Clan's patriarch. He could be considered a young patriarch-level figure. However, in the Rock Spirit Clan, no one was afraid of Xiao Xiao just because he was the young patriarch. Perhaps this was the benefit of having a pure nature. In the land of creation, power and status had long been infinitely weakened. The beings living here didn't care at all. Or rather, they didn't know what power and status were. The so-called patriarch was just a bit older and respected. Of course, as a patriarch, the burden on his body was also very heavy. He wasn't Gu Lingyao's opponent. In front of Gu Lingyao, he couldn't resist at all. But soon, Xiao Xiao noticed Xiao Qing on Xiao Chen's shoulder. He immediately became spirited and jumped directly in front of Xiao Chen. He looked at Xiao Qing, who was about the same size as him but was obviously much weaker, and asked, "Who are you? Are you an outsider like these guys?" Seeking collection, monthly votes, recommendation. Chapter 28-22. Xiao Xiao had been trampled on by Gu Lingyao earlier, so when it saw Little Qing, it seemed as if it had seen hope and eagerly asked Little Qing. Xiao Chen shook his head and chuckled. It was probably impossible for it to trample on Little Qing. After all, Little Qing was at the Ancestor Realm and wasn't any weaker than Gu Lingyao. Thus, it was still impossible for Xiao Xiao to regain its confidence from Little Qing. Little Qing was also eager to give it a try. It jumped down from Xiao Chen's shoulder and said, "You want to spar with me too?" "Yes, I want to spar with you. Don't worry, I won't hurt you." Xiao Xiao was still full of confidence. It felt that it could definitely defeat Little Qing. After all, Little Qing was so small. In the Stone Spirit Clan, the smaller the size, the weaker the combat strength. Thus, Xiao Xiao naturally felt that it could easily defeat Little Qing. However, the result was self-evident. Before Little Qing, Xiao Xiao was still completely trampled. It wasn't a match for Little Qing at all and was defeated in the end. Xiao Xiao looked at Little Qing doubtfully. It was very obvious that it had started to doubt life. It couldn't defeat Gu Lingyao, but it still couldn't fight back at all when facing Little Qing, who was about the same size as it. This was something that Xiao Xiao had never expected. When they saw Xiao Zhao's defeat, not only were the Stone Spirit clan members not angry in the slightest, they even laughed loudly and ridiculed Xiao Xiao incessantly. From the Stone Spirit clan's point of view, Little Qing had used strength to prove that it was stronger than Xiao Xiao and didn't use any underhanded method. Thus, it should be respected after winning. The Stone Spirit clan didn't understand those twists and turns. It was true that they liked to fight, but they wouldn't use underhanded methods. From their point of view, victory belonged to the strong, and the strong should be respected. Next, Xiao Chen and the others naturally received a warm welcome. Xiao Chen, Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others also sparred with the other Stone Spirit clan members. Xiao Chen and the others naturally didn't refuse the Stone Spirit clan's invitation. After a round of sparring, the Stone Spirit clan had completely accepted Xiao Chen and the others. The group of people chatted together. However, the leader of the Stone Spirit clan was not in the clan at the moment. Instead, he had gone out. It was said that he had accompanied several outsiders like Xiao Chen and the others. Previously, he had heard that other outsiders had also come to the Stone Spirit clan. Regarding this, Xiao Chen had been guessing whether it was Lin Yun and the others. After all, they were the only outsiders. But who exactly were they? Hearing this news again, Xiao Chen took the opportunity to ask, "When did those outsiders arrive?" "Oh, 2 days ago. They came a little earlier than you guys." "Not bad, the Patriarch likes them very much." Xiao Chen asked about the identities of the outsiders. While Xiao Chen and the others were talking, there was a commotion outside. The clan leader of the Stone Spirit clan returned. Everyone in the Stone Spirit clan was naturally happy that the Patriarch had returned. Xiao Chen also looked in the direction of the sound and soon saw the leader of the Stone Spirit clan. However, what Xiao Chen really cared about was the few people beside the leader of the Stone Spirit clan. Upon seeing them, Xiao Chen smiled slightly. He didn't expect it to be Dongfang Yun and the others. This time, Dongfang Yun naturally didn't go to the land of creation alone. There were several powerhouses from the Red Wind world accompanying her. He didn't expect that the first person he met in the land of creation would be Dongfang Yun. When Xiao Chen saw Dongfang Yun naturally saw Xiao Chen as well. Upon seeing Xiao Chen, Dongfang Yun also smiled and took the initiative to step forward. "I didn't expect to meet you guys here. I was wondering who it was before. I didn't expect it to be you. How is it? Is there any news about the world spirit?" Upon hearing Dongfang Yun's words, Xiao Chen shook his head, indicating that he didn't have any harvest. In this regard, Dongfang Yun didn't wait for Xiao Chen to speak and directly said, "It's the same. I didn't find anything on my side either." It was indeed not an easy thing to find the world's spirit. He felt a little helpless in his heart, but soon the two stopped talking about this topic. Under Dongfang Yun's introduction, Xiao Chen quickly got to know the leader of the Stone Spirit clan. Like the other members of the Stone Spirit clan, the leader of the Stone Spirit clan was also a straightforward character. When he saw Xiao Chen and the others, he didn't think much and laughed heartily to welcome them. Under the warm welcome of the Stone Spirit clan, Xiao Chen and the others also had a good time. It wasn't until nightfall, when everyone rested one after another, that Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun sat together to discuss the next matter. When they entered the land of creation, everyone was scattered by the spatial turbulence. Now, Dongfang Yun didn't know the location of the others. It was also a coincidence that she met Xiao Chen here. During the time they entered the land of creation, Dongfang Yun had also been inquiring about the world's spirit. She had seen many creatures unique to the land of creation. Similar to Xiao Chen's situation, the creatures of the land of creation were very kind to outsiders like them. They didn't encounter any great danger. Unfortunately, Dongfang Yun didn't find any clues about the world's spirit along the way. Similarly, Xiao Chen also told Dongfang Yun about the things on his side, including the matter of the Wood Spirit clan. After learning that Xiao Chun had already been to the Wood Spirit Clan, Dongfang Yun said with some disappointment, "So you have already been to the Wood Spirit Clan." The leader of the Stone Spirit Clan also suggested that I make a trip to the Wood Spirit Clan. He said that there is an old tree there, an old monster that has lived for many years. Even he can't compare to it. Maybe it knows something about the world's spirit. Dongfang Yun didn't expect that the leader of the Stone Spirit Clan would actually ask her to go to the Wood Spirit Clan. It was no wonder, after all, that old tree was definitely a living fossil-level existence. Since she wanted to find the world's spirit, it was obviously the best to ask it. Originally, Dongfang Yun still had a lot of hope. After all, that old tree had existed for so many years and was an existence that was born almost at the same time as the ancient creatures. Then, it should know a lot of secrets. Maybe it could provide some information about the world's spirit. But after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Dongfang Yun became depressed. Because Xiao Chen came from the Wood Spirit Clan and had also seen the old tree. Unfortunately, he didn't get anything useful from the old tree. The old tree still didn't know where the world's spirit was. After all, the world's spirit wasn't static in one place. It had its own thoughts. When it appeared, who knew where it would appear? Therefore, for Xiao Chen and the others, the difficulty of finding the world's spirit seemed to be even greater. It was no wonder that Dongfang Yun felt helpless. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 28-23. Seeing that Dongfang Yun was a little depressed, Xiao Chen smiled freely. In fact, there's nothing to be unhappy about. Just as the old tree said, the choice is not in our hands now. The whereabouts of the spirit of the universe are uncertain. Who knows where it is? If it wants to help us, it will naturally show itself. Xiao Chen comforted Dongfang Yun. Dongfang Yun naturally understood that. She also understood that the choice was not in their hands. It was their choice whether the spirit of the world wanted to see them or not. There was no way they could force the spirit of the world to do so. However, it was one thing to understand the reason, but it was another thing to accept it. When she thought of the purpose of their trip this time, Dongfang Yun felt immense pressure. It was as if she did not have time to breathe at all. In the following time, Xiao Chen kept comforting Dongfang Yun and even told her some fun things when he was young. This was the first time Dongfang Yun knew about Xiao Chen's past. As the world lord of a universe, Dongfang Yun did not expect Xiao Chen to be someone who came from a small place. It should be known that with Xiao Chen's background, it would be very difficult for him to gain a foothold in the great wide world, let alone become the world lord. I didn't expect you to have such rich experience. A pair of beautiful eyes looked at Xiao Chen curiously as if it was the first time she had met Xiao Chen. In this regard, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "This can't be helped. People are often forced. At that time, I didn't want to be the world lord. I just wanted the sword sect to gain a foothold in the great wide world." At this point, Xiao Chen paused and waved his hand helplessly. But who would have thought that in the end I would become the world lord? So, people sigh, it's not good to be too talented. Xiao Chen's words were quite narcissistic, and he was completely different from his usual self. However, when Dongfang Yun heard this, she burst out laughing and then rebuked Xiao Chen. Narcissist. The two of them stared at each other, and for a moment, the atmosphere changed a little. Dongfang Yun didn't know why, but when he looked at Xiao Chen in front of him, he unconsciously became a little nervous, and at the same time, he seemed to be looking forward to something. Xiao Chen also felt that the atmosphere wasn't right. Both of them were no longer virgins. Naturally, they knew what was going on. For a moment, Xiao Chen didn't know what to say. However, as a man, Xiao Chen still took the initiative to speak, wanting to break the awkward atmosphere. For Dongfang Yun, Xiao Chen naturally didn't have the slightest idea. Although this woman was very beautiful, she wasn't his cup of tea. Therefore, Xiao Chen took the initiative to change the topic. But who would have thought that as soon as Xiao Chen spoke, Dongfang Yun got up and ran away, only saying that he was tired. He didn't give Xiao Chen a chance to speak at all. Seeing this, Xiao Chen smiled bitterly and helplessly. What was going on? Dongfang Yun ran all the way back to her residence. Her face was still a little flushed. Just a moment ago, Dongfang Yun didn't know why, but she thought that she wouldn't be moved by any man in her life. But many things just happened so suddenly. Sitting alone in a corner, Dongfang Yun's mind was filled with Xiao Chen's image. From the way Xiao Chen talked about his youth and high spirits and the smile on his face, everything was clearly engraved in Dongfang Yun's mind. Frankly speaking, Dongfang Yun's experience obviously wasn't as good as Xiao Chen's. It could be said that Dongfang Yun's journey was smooth sailing. She was born in a big family in the Red Wind world. Her father was an ancestor and one of the giants in the Red Wind world. Then, in addition to her beauty, she was quickly taken in by the previous ruler of the Red Wind world and was never married to that man. But toward that man, Dongfang Yun didn't have any feelings at all. Everything was just because she didn't have a choice. It could be said that Dongfang Yun stood at the top of the Red Wind world from the moment she was born. It was even more so after she reached adulthood. Later on, Dongfang Yun grew ambitious and snatched the position of the ruler of the Red Wind world. Although it was an extremely simple life. There wasn't much to say. Besides, Dongfang Yun didn't feel that she did anything wrong. After all, she didn't have any feelings for that man, so why couldn't she become the ruler of the Red Wind world? Unlike Xiao Chen's rich and colorful experience, Dongfang Yun had to admit that when Xiao Chen talked about his experiences in his youth, Dongfang Yun moved. She really wanted to experience everything with Xiao Chen. Perhaps that kind of life would be more meaningful. Perhaps if that was the case, then right now, she and Xiao Chen. Dongfang Yun tried hard not to think about Xiao Chen, but she couldn't control it at all. For some reason, Dongfang Yun just wanted to experience everything with Xiao Chen. In addition, after spending some time with Xiao Chen, she recalled how Xiao Chen's first reaction when he learned that the patriarchs were going to create a new world was to resist. Even though the other party was a patriarch, Xiao Chen didn't have the slightest intention of surrendering. He single-handedly created such an alliance and was the first person who dared to resist the patriarch. Everything about Xiao Chen seemed to be so high-spirited that Dongfang Yun couldn't help but be captivated by him. Perhaps Dongfang Yun's feelings toward Xiao Chen had changed a long time ago. She just didn't want to admit it. But tonight, after the two of them had their first one-on-one contact, and after Xiao Chen told her about his past for the first time, the neglected feelings in Dongfang Yun's heart finally exploded. And the explosion was so fierce that Dongfang Yun didn't even have time to react. She wasn't prepared at all. This was an extremely special man, even among the other world lords. Indeed, which world lord would dare to resist the patriarchs? Without Xiao Chen taking the lead, perhaps no one would even think of resisting, nor would anyone have the guts to do so. This was a man you couldn't forget. He was very attractive. Dongfang Yun especially liked Xiao Chen's smile. It was confident and gentle, but not domineering. If only I could have been born in the same place as you. I could have accompanied you through everything you've experienced. Dongfang Yun lowered her head and softly muttered to herself. This was one of Dongfang Yun's few wishes, and it was a wish that she suddenly wanted to fulfill. She could only blame herself for not meeting Xiao Chen earlier. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 28-24. After a night of silence, when they met again the next day, Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun seemed to have forgotten what happened last night. Both of them tacitly kept their mouths shut, and the way they interacted with each other didn't change at all. It was as if nothing had happened last night. After a night of calmness, Dongfang Yun had completely suppressed the feelings in her heart. As a world lord, Dongfang Yun could naturally control her emotions very well. Needless to say, Xiao Chen didn't have any other thoughts about Dongfang Yun in the first place. When the two met, in front of Qin Shiru and Fairy of 100 Flowers, Dongfang Yun said with a smile, "Xiao Chen, since it's difficult to inquire about the world spirits in a short time, why don't I take you to a good place?" A good place? Hearing this, Xiao Chen was puzzled in her heart and asked. "This place was told to me by the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan. Yesterday, he and I went there to take a look. It's really good. Believe me, it will be of great use to you." Already at the level of a world lord, Xiao Chen really couldn't think of anything that could help her improve her strength. However, looking at Dongfang Yun's expression, it was obvious that she had personally experienced it, and the result seemed to be good. As a world lord, since Dongfang Yun felt that it would be helpful to her, then it would definitely be helpful to Xiao Chen. Immediately, Xiao Chen also nodded and agreed. Anyway, since Dongfang Yun had found something good that could improve her strength, there was no harm in going and taking a look. However, this thing seemed to be told to her by the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan. After Dongfang Yun's explanation, Xiao Chen also knew the ins and outs of the matter. The place that Dongfang Yun wanted to take Xiao Chen to was a spiritual spring. Although it looked like an ordinary pool, it was extremely extraordinary. This place was also accidentally discovered by the Stone Spirit clan. It seemed to have a great effect on soul power, but the Stone Spirit clan didn't need any soul power, so they didn't pay too much attention to it. However, it was different for Xiao Chen and the others. Putting aside the fact that they were all in soul form, the effect of strengthening their soul power was extremely obvious. Even if they were to rebuild their physical bodies in the future, the strengthening of their soul power would only be beneficial and not harmful. The spiritual spring was completely useless to the Stone Spirit clan, but it was extremely useful to Xiao Chen and the others. And all of this was exchanged for by Dongfang Yun with a few jars of fine wine. That's right, for such a spirit spring, Dongfang Yun only paid the price of a few jars of wine. It couldn't be helped, the Stone Spirit clan had never drunk wine before. When Dongfang Yun took out the wine for the first time, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan only took a sip and was extremely fond of it. He even proposed to exchange something with Dongfang Yun. There wasn't anything good in the Stone Spirit clan. Even if there was, Dongfang Yun might not be interested in it. In the end, the Stone Spirit clan patriarch suddenly thought of the Spirit Spring, so he proposed to use the Spirit Spring to exchange for wine with Dongfang Yun. After personally visiting the Spirit Spring, Dongfang Yun naturally agreed without hesitation. What a joke, a Spirit Spring that was useful to world lords, especially a few jars of fine wine could not be compared to it. It was also because there was no such thing in the land of creation. If it was placed in the outside world, unless the donkey took it, it was absolutely impossible to make such a deal. Of course, this couldn't be said to be a loss. After all, each took what they needed. Moreover, even if the Spirit Spring was placed in the hands of the Stone Spirit clan, it was meaningless. Exchanging a completely useless thing for a few jars of fine wine was not a loss at all for the Stone Spirit clan. Similarly, it was even more of a loss for Xiao Chen and the others. One must know that after becoming a world lord, there was almost nothing that could enhance Xiao Chen's combat strength. But now, this ordinary Spirit Spring was actually able to enhance Dongfang Yun's soul power. It could be seen that this Spirit Spring was extraordinary. Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun also personally went to greet the Stone Spirit clan patriarch. Seeing Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun, the Stone Spirit clan patriarch immediately laughed loudly. "Haha, you guys are here. You have to say, this thing is really strong to drink. Not bad, not bad." Early in the morning, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan had already started drinking. Could be seen that he really liked the taste of this wine. This wasn't strange. With the forthright character of the Stone Spirit clan, it would be strange if they didn't like drinking wine. Xiao Chen was not stingy this time. He directly took out 100 jars of fine wine from his space ring. As the world lord of the Great Thousand World and the sacred master of the sacred palace, Xiao Chen had a lot of good things in his space ring, and there was so much fine wine that he could not finish. Therefore, taking out 100 jars of fine wine was not a difficult thing for Xiao Chen. It was just a small matter. Although it was a small matter for Xiao Chen, the Stone Spirit Clan patriarch was completely stunned when he saw the 100 jars of fine wine. His eyes widened like copper bells. "Take these jars of wine as a gift from me to thank Patriarch for the spirit pool," Xiao Chen said with a smile. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the Stone Spirit Clan patriarch did not act courteous at all, nor did he pretend to refuse. He immediately laughed heartily and accepted the jars of fine wine. "Haha, good, good. If it was something else, the Stone Spirit Clan patriarch might not care too much. However, if it was wine, he would take as much as he could without hesitation." Seeing the Stone Spirit Clan patriarch accept the jars of fine wine without hesitation, Xiao Chen revealed a faint smile. Not only did Xiao Chen not dislike the Stone Spirit Clan's character, he even liked them very much. Perhaps the Stone Spirit Clan was indeed simple-minded and easily deceived, but in their eyes, liking was liking and hating was hating. There was no pretense at all. Xiao Chen did not have to worry about anything when interacting with the Stone Spirit Clan. He was very relaxed and did not need to guess anything. Fortunately, they were in the land of creation. If they were in the outside world, the character of the Stone Spirit Clan would probably bring about a disaster for them. After all, such a one-track-minded clan would be played like a monkey by others. However, only the origin of creation could nurture such a character. Thus, to the Stone Spirit Clan, being able to live in the origin of creation was indeed the best outcome. After all, with their character, it would be very difficult for them to survive in the outside world. Xiao Chen accompanied the Stone Spirit Clan patriarch and drank a few cups. However, judging from his appearance, he was clearly reluctant to let Xiao Chen drink. In response, Xiao Chen smiled and did not say anything. He did not drink much either. After drinking for a night, Xiao Chen took the initiative to stand up and take his leave. "Patriarch, we'll be taking our leave first." "Oh, so that's the case. All right then, I won't keep you any longer. If there's anything, you can come and find me at any time. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." End of chapter. Chapter 28-25. Seeing that Xiao Chen had taken the initiative to leave, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit Clan tried to persuade him to stay, but his excellent acting skills had undoubtedly exposed his true thoughts. He really wasn't willing to share such fine wine with others. Therefore, seeing that Xiao Chen wanted to leave, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit Clan agreed without hesitation, as though he was afraid that Xiao Chen would go back on his words. In response, Xiao Chen shook his head helplessly with a bitter smile. Just how much did the patriarch of the Stone Spirit Clan love to drink such fine wine? Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun didn't expose him and left directly. After the two of them left, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit Clan said with a pained expression, "Such a precious thing, and I've lost another 2 cups. Just because Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun drank a cup of wine each, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit Clan was heartbroken. It could be seen how much importance he attached to these fine wines. Of course, Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun obviously didn't know about this. After the two of them left, Dongfang Yun looked at Xiao Chen and asked, "Are we leaving now?" "Yes, let's leave now. I'm also very interested in that spiritual pool." Xiao Chen naturally wasn't willing to wait any longer. After hearing Dongfang Yun's words, he had long been very interested in that spiritual pool. It should be noted that Xiao Chen's soul power had completely transformed after becoming the Lord of the world. Ordinary treasures had no effect on Xiao Chen at all. However, Dongfang Yun was certain that the spiritual pool would be of great use to him and Dongfang Yun. How could Xiao Chun not be excited? One had to know that when he was young, soul attacks were also one of Xiao Chen's trump cards. However, as his cultivation increased, the opponents that Xiao Chen faced became stronger and stronger. In the end, their soul powers were actually more or less the same. Under such circumstances, Xiao Chen's soul slash was naturally no longer as useful and its power was greatly reduced. Over time, Xiao Chen slowly gave up on using soul attacks. However, Xiao Chen had to admit that as long as one's soul power was strong enough, the unpredictable soul attacks were still the most difficult to guard against. Xiao Chen was very clear about this because he had personally experienced it. If what Dongfang Yun said was true and this spiritual spring could continue to strengthen his soul force, then it was needless to say that it would be a huge boost to Xiao Chen's strength. Even the soul attack that he rarely used now might become one of Xiao Chen's trump cards again in the future. Therefore, Xiao Chen naturally wasn't willing to wait. He called Dongfang Yun to call the people of the Red Wind World, while he went to call Xianyuan Ling and the others. They immediately set off and rushed to the spiritual pool to take a look. Looking at Xiao Chen's excited look, Dongfang Yun smiled. This Xiao Chen was also very cute. He didn't have the prestige of the World Lord at all. He was more like a child who was looking forward to something. Perhaps this was the truest side of Xiao Chen. However, the more it was like this, the deeper Dongfang Yun's impression of Xiao Chen. This time, Dongfang Yun subconsciously said, "Look at your impatient look. If this was seen by outsiders, who would believe that you are the World Lord? So what? Who is to say what the World Lord should look like? Besides, I'm just curious." Hearing this, Xiao Chen said indifferently. He waved his hand and left directly. He didn't notice Dongfang Yun's strange look and even urged him, "Hurry up on your side. We will set off when you are ready." Xiao Chen didn't feel that there was anything different about his attitude just now. It was very natural when they were together. However, it was precisely because of this naturalness that made it seem like Xiao Chen was with Qin Shuiru and the other girls. Looking at the back of Xiao Chen hurriedly leaving, Dongfang Yun sighed lightly. He knew that it was impossible, but he couldn't control himself. He just wanted to stay with Xiao Chen. He knew that it was wrong, but he couldn't bear it. With complicated feelings, Dongfang Yun quickly called several powerhouses of the Red Wind World and rushed to meet with Xiao Chen. It could be seen that Xiao Chen was really anxious. When Dongfang Yun arrived, Xiao Chen, Xianyuan Ling, Qin Shuru and the others were already waiting. Seeing Dongfang Yun rushing over, Xiao Chen said with some displeasure, "Why are you so slow? Are you all ready? Okay, let's set off now." Hearing this, Dongfang Yun nodded. Then, the group left the myriad stone forest. With Dongfang Yun leading the way, they rushed to the spiritual pool. Dongfang Yun had been to the spiritual pool before. The spiritual pool wasn't far from the myriad stone forest. With their speed, they would reach it in at most 2 hours. Along the way, Xiao Chen appeared to be somewhat impatient. Dongfang Yun said with a smile, "Why are you so anxious? The spiritual pool won't grow legs and run away by itself. You are a full man who doesn't know the hunger of a hungry man. You have seen the spiritual pool, but I haven't. How much longer do we have?" "Soon. Happy. Look at your impatient appearance." While speaking, Dongfang Yun smiled naturally and patted Xiao Chen lightly. This action was obviously a little too intimate. However, the two of them obviously didn't notice this problem. Xiao Chen's heart was filled with the spiritual pool, and Dongfang Yun's action could be said to be a natural action. It was a subconscious action. Just like this, the two of them unknowingly seemed to have shortened the distance between them. Under this kind of unconscious action, the group quickly arrived at the spiritual pool. It was located on a mountain peak. The entire mountain peak was shaped like a bowl. It was concave inwards, and the spiritual pool was located here. Standing in the air, Xiao Chen looked at the spiritual pool that occupied the entire mountain peak. It was comparable to a small lake. Although it was rare for a small lake to appear on a mountain peak, after careful observation, he was somewhat puzzled. Are you sure this spiritual pool is useful? No matter how he looked at it, he felt that this spiritual pool was too ordinary. There was nothing special about the lake water. Although it was very clear, it was just an ordinary lake. The scenery was not bad, but what was the use of it? He couldn't feel any spiritual energy from it. Xiao Chen was a little doubtful. Could such an extremely ordinary lake really be useful? Facing Xiao Chen's doubts, Dongfang Yun said with a smile, "Whether it is useful or not, you will know if you go down and try it yourself." That's true. Perhaps there are some secrets hidden in this spiritual pool. Hearing this, Xiao Chen agreed. Then, the group slowly landed in front of the spiritual pool. Xiao Chen stared at the spiritual pool from the beginning to the end, looking around as if he wanted to see what was different about this spiritual pool. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 28-26. Xiao Chen carefully looked at the spiritual pool in front of him, but he still couldn't find anything special about it. This small lake looked extremely ordinary. There was nothing extraordinary about it at all. After a fruitless observation, Xiao Chen directly jumped into the spiritual pool. Dongfang Yun had personally felt the power of this spiritual spring before. Xiao Chen was also a little impatient. As soon as he entered the spiritual pool, Xiao Chen keenly felt that a pure soul power instantly gushed out from the spiritual pool and continuously poured into his body. Because he didn't have a physical body, Xiao Chen could be said to be more sensitive to soul power at this time. Therefore, when this soul power appeared, Xiao Chen keenly felt the existence of this soul power. It was indeed extremely extraordinary. There was no trace of spiritual power, but it had such pure soul power. He didn't know how this spiritual pool was formed, but as Dongfang Yun said, this spiritual pool was extremely useful even for world lords like Xiao Chen. Not to mention other things, with this soul power, Xiao Chen's spirit would definitely be able to reach a higher level. At that time, the previous soul slash would once again play a terrifying role. Thinking about it, if the soul slash could once again become Xiao Chen's attack method, then Xiao Chen's strength would probably be greatly improved. Xiao Chen was naturally very satisfied with this spiritual pool. Qin Shuru, Lu Bingning, and the other girls, who were secretly injured, also quickly entered the spiritual pool under Xiao Chen's instructions. At the same time, Dongfang Yun and the other experts of the Red Wind world naturally didn't pass on their responsibilities to others. The spiritual pool was not small, and the soul power was so pure, so there was no need to worry about not having enough. Everyone could completely relax and cultivate in this spiritual pool. Even Little Qing followed everyone into the spiritual pool. Little Qing naturally didn't know how to cultivate, but just soaking in this spiritual pool made Little Qing instinctively feel very comfortable. An indescribable feeling made Little Qing fall into a deep sleep unconsciously. Everyone closed their eyes and cultivated. Under the cleansing of such pure soul power, Xiao Chen could clearly feel that his soul power was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. It must be known that spiritual power was extremely difficult to cultivate. Under normal circumstances, it would be extremely difficult to increase one's spiritual power by just a little. In the entire world, perhaps only the land of creation had such an opportunity. It had to be said that Dongfang Yun's discovery of this spiritual pool was really a great opportunity for everyone. At least for Xiao Chen and the others, it was undoubtedly excellent news. Just like that, everyone began to cultivate. However, at the same time, after Xiao Chen and the others left, the Stone Spirit clan became somewhat restless. The reason for this was because there were living beings that had arrived. The Fire Spirit clan could be considered a unique living being in the land of creation. Their entire bodies were enveloped in flames. Moreover, the two clans seemed to be natural enemies with the Stone Spirit clan. They were mortal enemies from the moment they met, and could erupt into conflict at any time. It just so happened that the two clans were very close to each other, so from time to time, either the Fire Spirit clan or the Stone Spirit clan would come to provoke them. After all, the two clans were courageous and ruthless. They were not afraid of battle at all. Neither was willing to submit to the other, and neither was fond of the other. On this day, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan was originally in a good mood as he drank wine. However, a member of the Stone Spirit clan hurried over and said with an angry expression, "Patriarch, those people from the Fire Spirit clan have come again. What's so fragrant?" The member of the Stone Spirit clan was originally furious, but when he smelled the fragrance of wine in the room, the anger on his face disappeared. Then, he curiously examined the jar of wine in front of the patriarch. The fragrance was emitted from the jar of wine. In response, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan was furious. "Those bastards have come again?" Naturally, he did not have a good impression of the Fire Spirit clan. So, after hearing those words, the originally good mood of the Stone Spirit clan's patriarch instantly turned bad. However, his words did not receive a response because the member of the Stone Spirit clan had already walked over to the jar of wine. He merely took a few glances at the jar of wine, then directly lifted it up and drank a few mouthfuls. Refreshing. What's this? The Stone Spirit clan seemed to have never had any resistance towards good wine. As for the member of the Stone Spirit clan who drank the wine for the first time, he clearly fell in love with the taste. Seeing the member of the Stone Spirit clan drink half of his jar of wine in a single breath, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan was furious. "You wastrel! Don't you know how to drink sparingly? My jar of good stuff has been finished by you just like that?" Seeing that more than half of the jar of wine had been drunk in a single breath, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan instantly felt heartache. One must know that even when Xiao Chun and Dongfang Yun only drank a cup, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan felt heartache. Not to mention now, he had been frugal and only dared to drink a small mouthful each time. In the end, the remaining half of the jar of wine was drunk in a single breath, just like that. It would be strange if he did not feel heartache. Feeling extremely depressed, he naturally began to rain curses on the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan. However, the member of the Stone Spirit clan did not hear the slightest bit of his patriarch's curses. Right now, the only thing on his mind was the taste of the wine. What exactly was this thing? How could it be so delicious? Although the taste was a bit spicy, it was also incomparably sweet. It was also a bit intoxicating. It must be said that the members of the Stone Spirit clan were a group of existences that reacted half a beat slower. Their patriarch was cursing furiously in front of them, yet they were thinking about the jar of wine in their hearts. That was extremely excessive. After a series of curses, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan was furious when he saw that the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan did not listen to him at all. However, right now was not the time to bother about that. The group of people from the Fire Spirit clan had come to cause trouble again. Right now, he had to deal with them first. "You're still thinking about drinking? All you know is to drink. What time is it now? Let's deal with the Fire Spirit clan first." The patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan was completely speechless at the fellow in front of him. What time was it now, yet he was still thinking about drinking. Hearing that, the member of the Stone Spirit clan finally came back to his senses. Seeing the obstruction in front of him, he nodded in a somewhat dull manner. "Oh yes, let's deal with the Fire Spirit clan first. However, patriarch, is there any more of this thing? Can you give me a little more to drink?" "Drink my ass. You drank it all. There's none. More than half of the jar of wine was directly drunk by you in a single gulp. You still want more? There's none, absolutely none." The patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan had already made up his mind. He was going to hide the wine well in the future. How long could they last if they drank it like that? What a joke! Requesting collection, requesting monthly votes, requesting recommendation. Chapter 28-27. To put it bluntly, those fine wines before them were the lifeblood of the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief. Even he was reluctant to drink them, so how could he possibly share them with others? Thus, when he heard the words of the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief, he shook his head repeatedly and said that he did not have any more. To put it bluntly, those fine wines before them were the lifeblood of the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief. Even he was reluctant to drink them, so how could he possibly share them with others? Thus, when he heard the words of the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief, he shook his head repeatedly and said that he did not have any more. After he finished saying those words, he did not wait for the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief to reply and took the lead to walk out. As he walked, he cursed. Where are those bastards from the Fire Spirit Clan? He would rather fight with the Fire Spirit race than allow anyone else to covet his lifeblood. Seeing the appearance of the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief, the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief curled his lips and followed after him with a helpless expression. The arrival of the Fire Spirit Clan was not strange to the Stone Spirit Clan. After all, those fellows would come to cause trouble from time to time. The two clans would also start a fight at the slightest disagreement. Before the arrival of the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief, there were already many Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief gathered here, and they were confronting a group of Fire Spirit Clan's clan chief. You bastards, what's wrong? You want to fight? A bunch of idiot. Bring it on. The quarrel between the two clans could be heard from afar. The atmosphere was extremely tense, and a battle could erupt at any moment. Following the arrival of the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief, what surprised him was that even the Fire Spirit Clan's clan chief had come this time. The arrival of a clan chief was a rare occurrence. However, the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief did not think too much about it. He took a glance at the Fire Spirit Clan's clan chief, then coldly asked the Fire Spirit Clan's clan chief. So many people have come. What's wrong? Have you come to cause trouble? You stubborn rock, I am not here to fight with you today. I heard that your Stone Spirit Clan discovered a spiritual pool? I have come for that. The words of the Fire Spirit Clan's clan chief stunned the Stone Spirit Clan's clan chief. They were not here to cause trouble? Instead, they were here for the spiritual pool? For the spiritual pool? The Stone Spirit Clan's spiritual pool? After all, the Stone Spirit Clan's spiritual soul power. Thus, the Stone Spirit Clan's spiritual pool? Was it just like trash? It was not essential. However, he hadn't expected that the Fire Spirit race would actually take the initiative to come and ask for this spirit pool. Given the character of the Stone Spirit Clan. Chapter 28-28. The Stone Spirit Clan and the Fire Spirit Clan fought fiercely. The strength of the two clans could be said to be very close. For a time, no one could do anything to the other. However, due to the various grievances from before, the two clans were indeed locked in a fierce battle. The Stone Spirit Clan and the Fire Spirit Clan fought fiercely. The strength of the two clans could be said to be very close. For a time, no one could do anything to the other. However, due to the various grievances from before, the two clans were indeed locked in a fierce battle. Shao Chun and the others, who were in the spirit pool, naturally did not know about this. At this time, Shao Chun and the others were wholeheartedly focused on cultivation. The spiritual force in the spirit pool was definitely something that Shao Chun and the others yearned for even in their dreams. It was really hard to imagine that other than the place of creation, there was no other place that could have such rich spiritual force. Everyone was frantically absorbing the spiritual force in the spirit pool. Shao Chen could clearly feel that his spiritual force was constantly growing stronger and stronger. Under such an increase, Even though everyone was only left with their spiritual force and their physical bodies had been obliterated, their strength had increased by quite a bit. To put it bluntly, even though Shao Chun and the others only had their spiritual force, their strength was not weaker than when they were at their peak. This was because everyone's spiritual force had been greatly enhanced. Of course, the ones who had the greatest improvement were not Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun, but Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others. Because they were only at the ancestor realm, the pure spiritual force was even more terrifying for them. It was very difficult for Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun to increase their strength now. However, it was different for Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others because they were only at the ancestor realm. It was much easier for them to increase their strength than Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun. Therefore, the spirit pool was obviously much more useful to them than Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun. This was obviously a good thing for Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing. Moreover, if their spiritual force could be strengthened, the benefits were too many. They did not care about time at all. At this moment, the only thing on their minds was how to increase their strength. Day after day passed. After an unknown period of time, Shao Chun and the others had completely absorbed the soul power within the spiritual pool. Such pure soul energy was indeed not inexhaustible. If it was really inexhaustible, then Shao Chun and the others would really be rich this time. Even so, this opportunity was extremely rare for Shao Chun and the others. It could be said to be a great opportunity. After leaving the spirit pool didn't seem to have changed at all. But now, the spirit pool had really turned into an ordinary lake. It no longer had the slightest use. This time, you have given us a great opportunity. Looking at the lake in front of him, Shao Chun smiled and said to Dongfang Yun. Dongfang Yun smiled and did not say anything. She could have enjoyed the spirit pool alone, but for some reason, she took it out and shared it with Shao Chun. Perhaps in her heart, she was willing to share the best things with Shao Chun. However, it was obviously impossible for Dongfang Yun to say these words. After this cultivation, everyone could be said to have gained a lot. Everyone was extremely satisfied. Qin Shuru, 100-Flower Fairy, and the others' spiritual forces were almost about to break through the ancestor realm. However, there was an insurmountable gap between the ancestor realm and the world lord realm. It was not so easy to break through. Back then, Shao Chun broke through to the world lord realm because he was recognized by the origin energy. Therefore, if Qin Shuru and the others wanted to break through to the world lord realm, they could not rely on cultivation alone. After all, Lin Yun had said before that no matter how talented you were, the ancestor realm was the limit. If you wanted to break through to the world lord realm, it depended on fate. This also proved that it was very difficult to break through to the world lord realm. However, there were so many world lords in the origin world. Obviously, if one wanted to break through to the world lord realm, they did not necessarily have to follow the same path as Shao Chun. However, they did need enough opportunities. This was not something that could be achieved through hard work. The spirit pool had completely lost its function. Next, Shao Chun and the others did not stay for long and directly returned to the Stone Spirit Clan. However, Little Qing's situation seemed a little strange. After staying in the spirit pool for a while, Little Qing had actually returned to sleep. However, Shao Chun had also checked and found that there was no problem. Little Qing's vitality was also very strong. It was as if it had simply fallen asleep. In the end, he could not find anything. Shao Chun could only assume that Little Qing had absorbed a lot of soul energy and could not bear it for a while. That was why it fell into a deep sleep. It would wake up after slowly integrating with the soul energy. This was the best explanation. Therefore, Shao Chun took the unconscious Little Qing and the group quickly returned to the Stone Spirit Clan. However, as soon as they arrived at the Myriad Stone Forest, Shao Chun felt that the atmosphere was a little different. How should he put it? That was because the Stone Spirit Clan members had a dense murderous aura. The atmosphere was also extremely tense. Xiao Chun immediately noticed the difference. He directly went to find the Stone Spirit Clan's patriarch. As expected, this guy was drinking again. During this period of time, the Fire Spirit race had been looking for trouble with the Stone Spirit race for no reason. Of course, the Stone Spirit race was the same. They would go cause trouble for the Fire Spirit race for no reason. Hearing that the Fire Spirit race had come again, the Stone Spirit Clan's patriarch drank all the wine in his cup in a single gulp. His face instantly became gloomy and he said, "I'll definitely tear these idiots apart this time." As he spoke, he walked out with large strides. Seeing that, Xiao Chun and the others also walked out of the Stone Spirit Clan's territory. Sure enough, outside the Stone Spirit Forest, the Stone Spirit Clan and the Fire Spirit Clan's patriarch were already in battle. Only the patriarch of the Stone Spirit Clan and the patriarch of the Fire Spirit Clan were facing each other, and they didn't have the time to attack. "Your Stone Spirit Clan really won't hand over the spiritual pool?" "I don't. Even if I did, I wouldn't hand it over." The patriarchs of the two sides refused to yield in the slightest. The Fire Spirit Clan's patriarch didn't think about saying anything in response to that. It was useless no matter how much he said to those stubborn rocks. Those fellows were stubborn, and their tempers were even more stubborn than the other. Trying to reason with them was simply like playing the lute to a cow. It was better to attack directly. If he wanted to make those stubborn rocks submit, then he could only use his fist and strength. However, right when the Fire Spirit Clan's patriarch was about to attack, he inadvertently noticed Xiao Chen and the others that were walking over. The Fire Spirit Clan's patriarch was stunned when he saw that, and then he spoke with slight doubt. "Outsiders?" With a single glance, he discerned that Xiao Chun and the others weren't living beings from the origin of creation. After that, the Fire Spirit Clan's patriarch instantly reacted. "You stubborn rock, you gave the spiritual pool to them?" Needless to say, the Fire Spirit Clan's patriarch's guess was spot on. However, the Stone Spirit Clan's patriarch didn't give an answer to that question. "So what if I did? So what if I didn't?" "You idiot! You actually gave the treasure to those outsiders." The Stone Spirit Clan's patriarch was extremely infuriated by the fact that the Stone Spirit Clan's patriarch had actually given the spiritual pool to Xiao Chen and the others. He'd been curious since the very beginning. The Stone Spirit Clan didn't cultivate soul energy, so why would they want the spiritual pool? He'd never expected that they'd actually give it to a group of outsiders. They'd rather give it to a group of outsiders than exchange it with them. That made the Fire Spirit Clan's patriarch seethe with anger. The flames of fury in his eyes burned fiercely. He couldn't care less and directly attacked. He even shouted angrily, "You idiot! You're infuriating me." He'd given such a good thing to the outsiders just like that. However, the Stone Spirit Clan's patriarch naturally wasn't afraid of the Fire Spirit Clan's patriarch's attack. He also shouted angrily and charged forward. The two patriarchs fought, and the strength they displayed had already surpassed the level of world lords. That was the terror of the origin of creation. Under normal circumstances, the patriarchs of the races in the origin of creation were all above the level of world lords. However, they were still slightly weaker than the ancient living beings. However, even so, they were strong enough. Previously, the Wood Spirit Clan was like that. Now, it was the same for the Stone Spirit Clan and the Fire Spirit Clan. With the strength of Xiao Chun and the others, they definitely couldn't intervene in the battle between the two patriarchs because the strength of both of them had surpassed the level of world lords. It would be difficult for Xiao Chun and the others to intervene. These guys really make people jealous. They don't have to do anything and they can easily break through the level of world lords. Dongfang Yun said enviously as he watched the fierce battle between the Stone Spirit Clan's patriarch and the Fire Spirit Clan's patriarch. Xiao Chen didn't comment on that, but he didn't say much. Since some things were already destined, there was no point in dwelling on it. Moreover, the reason why everyone went to the origin of creation this time was to find a way to break through the level of world lords. If they succeeded, Xiao Chen and the others would also be able to break through the shackles of life and reach a whole new level. Now, it was better to observe the situation of the battle between the two races. However, judging from the battle situation, the strength of the two races was about the same. It would be difficult for either side to gain the upper hand. It was basically a battle between soldiers and generals. If this continued, no one knew how the winner would be determined. Since the cause of this incident was the spiritual pool, and the soul power in the spiritual pool was obtained by Xiao Chen and the others, Xiao Chen definitely couldn't stand by and watch. Therefore, after observing the battle situation for a while, Xiao Chen said, "In this case, we have no reason not to intervene. Let's take care of this battle first. Moreover, I have a feeling that the Fire Spirit Clan is a little strange." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Dongfang Yun and the others naturally had no objection. Moreover, they did have a good impression of the Stone Spirit Clan, so they naturally had to help. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Although the Fire Spirit race was different from the Stone Spirit race, that spirit pool was indeed useful to the Fire Spirit race. However, this wasn't enough to make the Fire Spirit race go crazy. They didn't even hesitate to fight with the Stone Spirit race until they were in such a state. Were the benefits not proportional to the effort? So, that was why Xiao Chen felt that the Fire Spirit race's actions were rather strange. On the other hand, they cooperated with the Stone Spirit race to expand their forces. After Xiao Chen's group dealt with a member of the Fire Spirit race, when he saw that the Fire Spirit race was about to lose, Xiao Chen said to the Fire Spirit race's patriarch, "The outcome has been decided. Can we sit down and talk now?" In the land of creation, Xiao Chen didn't have much killing intent. After all, the living beings here didn't have any enmity with him. Moreover, compared to the outside world, the land of creation, it could simply be called a pure land. The living beings here, regardless of their personalities, regardless of whether they had enmity or not, almost all of them could be said to be very pure. They didn't have much scheming. Based on the enmity between the Stone Spirit race and the Fire Spirit race, if they were in the outside world, they would have probably fought to the death a long time ago, and they might even use all sorts of schemes. However, in the land of creation, even though the two races had always looked down on each other, they would still fight each other with real swords and spears, and no one would ever resort to any underhanded trick. The living beings here were very pure, and this was one of the places that Xiao Chen liked the most in the land of creation. The Fire Spirit race's patriarch was stunned when he heard Xiao Chen, and he was extremely unwilling in his heart. However, if the battle continued, then the Fire Spirit race would definitely lose. He had no other choice, so he could only take the initiative to retreat and speak with a gloomy expression. "Speak." The Fire Spirit race's patriarch took the initiative to retreat, and that made his intentions clear. Xiao Chen smiled and didn't say anything. He just looked at the Stone Spirit race's patriarch and spoke. "Patriarch, let's go to your place to talk. We can drink a few cups." Drink a few cups? No, how can I give my treasures to this idiot to drink? After all, this wasn't the place to talk. However, the Stone Spirit race's patriarch immediately shook his head when he heard that Xiao Chen wanted to go to his place and drink a few cups. What a joke! I can't even bear to drink it, so how can I give it to my sworn enemies? Xiao Chen had guessed that the Stone Spirit race's patriarch would say something like that. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I still have some fine wine here. I'll give you some more after you finish." Making the stone spirit race's patriarch take out fine wine was simply asking for his life. However, the stone spirit race's patriarch immediately beamed with joy when he heard that Xiao Chen still had fine wine. Of course. Haha, why didn't you take it out earlier if you had something good? I'll let you off easy this time. I'll take you to try something new, you ignorant idiot. After he finished speaking, he didn't forget to look down on the fire spirit race's patriarch. The fire spirit race's patriarch's face was gloomy, and he didn't say a word. However, he was cursing in his heart. What haven't I seen before? He simply didn't feel that the stone spirit race's patriarch could take out anything good. However, very soon, clear laughter rang out from the stone spirit race's patriarch. Haha, so this is the fine wine you were talking about. It's really not bad. The fire spirit race's patriarch couldn't escape the law of taste. Earlier, he had a nonchalant appearance, but after drinking a cup of wine, he immediately fell in love with the taste. However, the stone spirit race's patriarch continued to curse. You idiot, drink less. Do you think this is water? Seeing the stone spirit race's patriarch drinking cup after cup of fine wine, the stone spirit race's patriarch's heart was bleeding. Even he couldn't bear to drink the fine wine like that. Although it was indeed very refreshing to drink like that, it wasn't unlimited. What would he do if he finished it all? There was an indescribable anger in his heart. However, the fire spirit race's patriarch didn't care at all. He even glanced at the stone spirit race's patriarch complacently. It was as if he was saying, I'm going to drink like this. What can you do about it? The stone spirit race's patriarch almost became depressed. As for Xiao Chen, he seized the opportunity to ask, why is your fire spirit race so obsessed with that spirit spring? After all, if it's only a spirit spring, there shouldn't be a need for your fire spirit race to care so much about it, right? Sigh, isn't it because of those medicinal pellets? What we truly care about are those medicinal pellets. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. It was also what attracted them the most. Faced with something so attractive, the fire spirit race had reached an agreement with these outsiders? The fire spirit race seized the spirit pool from the stone spirit race? In that case, these outsiders could use fire spirit pills to exchange for it. It was such a simple matter. Hearing this, Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun looked at each other. From each other's eyes, all of them saw a look of helplessness. It was obvious that they had been used. Was it because the living beings in the land of creation were too naive? Otherwise, such a crude method would be useless in the outside world. To put it bluntly, those outsiders saw that they were no match for the Stone Spirit clan, but they were unwilling to give up on the spirit pool. So, they came up with this plan. They wanted to borrow the strength of the Fire Spirit race to deal with the Stone Spirit clan and help them take back the spirit pool. As for the Fire Spirit pill, it was simply too worthless. It was also because the Fire Spirit race was special that they valued the Fire Spirit pill so much. In the eyes of Xiao Chen and the others, the Fire Spirit pill was simply not worth mentioning. The reason for this matter had been found, but the truth made Xiao Chen and the others not know whether to laugh or cry. However, in the end, Xiao Chen still said to the Fire Spirit race's patriarch, we might know those people. Why don't we go back with you to the Fire Spirit race to take a look? Don't worry, since we have obtained the spirit pool, we will definitely not go back on our word about the Fire Spirit pill. The Fire Spirit pill was simply trash to Xiao Chen and the others. Taking it out to form good karma with the Fire Spirit race was absolutely worth it. Sure enough, the Fire Spirit race's patriarch beamed with joy when he heard that. He nodded repeatedly and said, Good. I like hearing that. Haha. As he spoke, he downed another large bowl of wine. Seeing that, the Stone Spirit race's patriarch finally couldn't help but curse. idiot, that's enough. Drink less. The Stone Spirit Race's patriarch couldn't help but curse when he saw the Fire Spirit Race's patriarch drinking bowl after bowl of wine that he loved. Naturally, the Fire Spirit Race's patriarch didn't care about that at all. On the other hand, Xiao Chen took out another 100 jars of wine and gave them to the Stone Spirit Race's patriarch. The Stone Spirit Race's patriarch's eyes lit up when he saw the 100 jars of wine. That was good stuff. Without saying anything else, he directly took all the wine. What a joke! He couldn't let go of these things. He wanted as much as he could get. Thinking about how he had several 100 jars of wine now, it should be enough for him to drink for a while. Only then did the Stone Spirit Race's patriarch ignore the Fire Spirit Race's patriarch. However, the Fire Spirit Race's patriarch's eyes turned red when he saw that.